for their internet.
Yeah. We have a meeting follow-up. Carter, do you have anything from the meeting to follow up with us?
Mr. Mayor, I do not.
Okay, councilors, do you guys have anything that you would like to follow up with or any questions about the meeting from last week? No? Okay. All right, well, let's move on to our next item, Casper Housing Authority update. Carter, do you have a tea that you need to tee us up with?
We have the honor tonight, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, good to see you all tonight to hear from Ms. Summerall Wright, who is the Director of the Housing Authority, as you all know. Periodically, we get the opportunity to hear from this organization as to some of the things they're up to and projects they're engaged in, and entertain any questions that you all have as well. So if it's okay with the mayor and the council, I'd like to refer to Kim.
Awesome. Kim.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to first thank our council liaison, Councilman Gamma, who just provides so much in the way of leadership and wisdom to our board, and we just appreciate him so much.
Very generous.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Until today. And then also to Mayor Pacheco, who is a former council liaison. So we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
We were getting towards the end of the year and realized that there's a lot of new faces on the council and maybe folks that just didn't know very much about Casper Housing Authority. So we wanted to just take a moment and come in and say hello and tell you what we do. Oh, this is cool. Okay. You know, this is a pretty tiny little thing, that don't have much time. Okay, so Casper Housing Authority was created in 1971 as an autonomous public entity to meet the needs of, or to address affordable housing in Casper and to handle that Casper's relationship with HUD regarding affordable housing. But it wasn't until 1974 that we actually started our very first public housing project and became a fully functioning public housing authority. So on February 1st of next year, Casper Housing Authority will celebrate 50 years of service to the city of Casper and Natrona County. In 2016, we created our nonprofit arm, which is called Casper Housing Authority Cares. It is a 501c3, 509A3. It's a supporting organization to the Casper Housing Authority, so it exists solely for that reason. They are our housing partner, and they provide all of the supportive services that are needed by the people who are housed or awaiting housing by the Casper Housing Authority. For many years, HUD kind of just operated in a housing vacuum. So when you applied for housing, they would give you your housing voucher, pat you on the head, say good luck, and we'll see you in a year. And they really didn't do much to keep you housed or to help you get off of assistance. A few years ago, probably about 15, that all changed. The government decided that PHAs should become a catalyst for change, that they should actually be a key component in ending poverty and should really get in the game to do something more than just provide housing. 10 years ago, we came up with this vision. Let me get to the vision. We're on a roll now. You've got it in front of you. I'll go ahead and read it. Our vision is to create dynamic communities where people thrive. The key word there being dynamic and where they thrive. That really means a lot to us. It's not just putting them in housing and leaving them there. Our mission is to provide quality, affordable housing that is well integrated into the fabric of neighborhoods and serves as a foundation to improve lives and advance resident independence. One of the things that is so important about that phrase and about our mission is that we do care about the neighborhoods in which we go into. We do want to make a difference to the neighborhoods and make it a positive interaction with the housing authority. We do this with a variety of housing programs. Right now, CHA houses nearly 1,000 people in the Casper area, but we have also expanded into the Natrona County area that's directly around Casper. We do that through 11 HUD and 3 RLS programs, but we also have specialized programs that meet a specific demographic that I've listed for you here. Additionally, we serve another 2,000 families through our non-federal programs. So on this slide, one of the things that is really important is we not only serve Casper now, we do serve Natrona County. So this is actually, we are housing 1% of the population of Natrona County. Unfortunately, the poverty rate is 10.88%. So that's a lot of people in need of housing assistance that is not available. So when you hear things like we're building a lot of housing, or it seems like we're everywhere and we're going into a lot of neighborhoods, this is what we're trying to cover. It's going to take a long time before we can ever house this many people with just the resources that we have today. You've seen some of the properties that we have built or rehabilitated. These are the steps that we are taking to expand our reach and to expand opportunity in the city of Casper. These three major projects were 210 units that comprised $48 million in construction of affordable housing. All of that funding came from outside the state of Wyoming. So not only were we, when we were building these, providing housing, we were also providing jobs to low-income and working families in Casper. You might recognize this building. It's the old Star Apartments. It was condemned by the city of Casper, and the city came to us and asked us to take on this project. And I'll tell you, it was a doozy. There is nothing left of that building except for the exterior, the brick columns that are in the center, and part of the basement. Everything else in it was taken out and rehabbed. It is our urban property. All of the properties have their own personality to provide a variety of choice to the people that we serve. It is 50 1- and 2-bedroom urban units downtown with 28 project-based vouchers. Now, what those vouchers do is that is the HUD subsidy that comes in. The rest of the building is more of a workforce housing, so it's split. Your rent can be as low as $50 a month on a HUD voucher, or for 1 bedroom can be $650 if you're working, which is about half of what it costs you in the regular market if you get into some of these newer properties that people are building. So we call this our downtown urban property. And by that, we mean there's not any outside space. It has a rooftop deck, an exercise room, a storage facility, laundry room, and a community room. So this property is very walkable. You can be involved in downtown and what's going on. It's near the library and it's near the transportation hub as well. The next property is Ravencrest, which is built on Dinosaur Hill out behind Blue Ridge Coffee. It is 100 units, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom on 7 acres. It's on the south side of town, and it does have 50 project-based vouchers, so it's half and half. This property is really focused on families and those who want more outside living, who want to be in a little bit more rural environment. The really unique thing about this property, it's the first RAD project in the state of Wyoming. RAD is the Rental Assistance Demonstration Project, which is what HUD is using to help housing authorities move from the old antiquated public housing model to a newer project-based voucher, which it's very, very different in the way it's funded, in the way it's managed, in the way the property has to be kept up. In the United States today, about 22,000 public housing units are condemned every year because there is simply not enough money to fund them. And so that's the amount of housing that the United States loses because of the old antiquated model. When our tenants moved from the old public housing to this property, they were pretty excited to find out that a dishwasher, a clothes dryer, and an air conditioner are considered standard amenities here, where in public housing, they are actually considered luxury items and you're not allowed to provide them. This is a huge, huge difference. The amenities on this property include a community garden. As you can see, it is very popular with all the people that live there. There's a playground and a clubhouse, which is free to the residents. And with the exception of the 1-bedroom units, all others have a master suite and every single one of them has an ensuite washer and dryer. This property was just finished 2 months ago. It is 90% leased. It is right in the center of Casper. It's next to the Child Development Center, right near Big Lots. It is on it's on the old ball fields. And I can tell you, we got a lot of flack. I don't know if we thought we were going to turn those back into ball fields, but people were not happy to see the ball fields leaving. But this property is near the rec center, the senior center. It is near a grocery store, which is really critically important. And the amenities included on-site laundry room. We put LED lighting throughout the entire property. The community gardens and the playground will be installed in the spring. It does have a workout room and a clubhouse. And this project was actually started at the direction of a previous city council who wanted 35 new workforce housing units, and this completed that goal for them. The interesting thing about this property is it was not only a ball field. In 1897, President Grover Cleveland deeded this piece of property to the town of Casper. He is the president who dedicated the Statue of Liberty. That's why we named it Liberty Square. And the orange on the outside is actually a copper colored metal in honor of the history of this property. Another option that we have created quite a bit of housing on is the Life Steps campus. We've done a little over a $2 million renovation to the property and has current construction going on today. It is funded by 1 cent. A lot of the constructions there, we've leveraged it into CDBG funds and some other private funding to get this done. And we do spend all of our 1 cent money on the property. It goes directly in there. The campus is owned by the city of Casper, and we are your manager. It is next door to where you're planning to put brand new public health. So very, very fun place. So there are some programs that are running that specifically are to address homelessness and some of the mental health challenges that we're seeing in the community. Foundations is a program for women coming out of an institutional environment that can be anything from the state hospital to WBI to the Lusk Women's Prison. It can be any type of institutional environment where they need time to retransition back into society. Our transitional housing program is there. We have a day hub facility for adults with disabilities, another housing program with Adult Teen Challenged, which is for women with children recovering from addiction. Healthcare for the homeless has been there for many years, and they are a wonderful, wonderful asset. We also house the community kitchen and the community gardens up there. The total number of housing units is 55. I don't know if you guys know this, but this year, the Casper leadership team planted the Life Steps campus garden. They came out and planted it for us. It was very exciting. This garden is part of the Food is Free program. It draws both the residents on the campus and those who are in the neighborhood. You can just stop by and pick whatever you need out of the garden at any time. At the end of the summer, we bring over our summer camp kids, and they pick all of the food and help process it in the community kitchen. The community kitchen on Life Steps, in addition to what it does on the campus, also serves our early childhood center. We serve about 100 meals every day, and we have just been told by the Child and Adult Care Food Program that our center has the freshest and most diverse menu in the state of Wyoming. So that kitchen has hosted all kinds of meetings and special events, including council meetings and even a Halloween wedding at one time.
I was there.
Oh, you were there.
My cousin, yeah.
So, but the campus also works as a hub for a lot of the support that the Housing Authority provides and some of our partner agencies. Just last week, this is the Birds and Bucks turkey dinner distribution. And so we've done vaccine clinics, disaster distributions, and a host of community events that take place there every year. Last summer, we had the honor of hosting Regional Administrator Jackson, who is the president appointee for HUD Region 8 in Denver. She travels all over the western part of the United States. She was extremely impressed with the campus, how this city is using that asset to serve its people and to build community. Life Steps is also part of the disaster plan for the city of Casper, and it anchors that neighborhood. So these are just some of the things that we do on the campus on a regular basis. But the reality is we don't do this alone. We have a lot of partners who work with us. While the Casper Housing Authority was limited to the city of Casper, and we have pushed out into Mill, Klarman, and Evansville, we are limited in our service area. CARES, our nonprofit, is not. It can go anywhere in the state. And so it really helps us go places that CHA is not able to go. The partnerships that we have, we sat down and figured out exactly how many people we work with just in housing. This is not with our nonprofit. This is simply within housing. One of the challenges that we have whenever we start looking at a partner is that we have to have a strong partner that is willing and able to work within the federal regulations that govern CHA. Every one of those housing programs that you saw before has a 6-inch binder. All of them are different. Each person that works on that program is certified specifically in that program. And then on top of that, you can throw in fair housing, all of the fair housing laws, and then whatever program that they are working on. Sometimes they are layered. So like having a property like Raven Crest, it has the LIHTC, the low-income housing tax credit rules, but then you throw in a voucher and it has the voucher rules as well. So all of a sudden it gets pretty complicated. So CHA Cares, Casper Housing Authority Cares, is our nonprofit. They do a lot of wonderful things for us. They handle all of our outreach and supportive services, and they are also our housing partner. But one of the things on this list, this is a lot of the outreach stuff that they do. The Father's Day event that we have in Washington Park, the Saturday before Father's Day, is the biggest in the nation. We had over 2,200 people there last year, and that's a lot when you get into the park. So the core programs of our nonprofit are case management, the weekly food pantries. They actually haul food to every single one of our properties every week. They run the Cares Free Store, they run our Early Learning Center, and Refab for Less. And you may have seen Refab for Less on Facebook a lot. What that is the old Habitat Restore. So about 8 years ago, we partnered with Habitat. They wanted to take a step back and take some time to reformat everything they were doing. And at that time, they decided to give up the restore. And we felt that we have a lot of neighborhoods that are lower income, that we felt those families really needed those new and used building material. So even if you're looking to do something in your house, you can buy tile there for 10 cents a tile. So it's pretty cheap and a lot of the items are new. We also take donations. So if you guys are remodeling, don't forget us. So there are some economic benefits to having a housing authority in your community. There are only 8 in the entire state of Wyoming. What we're bringing to the city of Casper is just something that a lot of communities are not able to enjoy. The largest, of course, is with all of the projects we do, aside from affordable housing, the other properties that we've done, the largest funding is $56 million in construction in the last 8 years. We brought in from the majority of it from outside the community. Every year, we drop $3 million into the local rental market. All of our programs are completely full or as close as we can get. And then the sustainability of our staff, our organization, both of them. We do a lot of training and we employ 48 people between the two organizations. The good news is we are in a strong position to move forward for the future. So what we'll be doing next year is working on our next 5-year plan. We'll start in 2025. There are a couple of things that are already on the list. The first being the Willard Envision Center that we've been working on for the last 2 years. But as we're celebrating this 50-year anniversary, which is huge, we really wanted to look at asking the community if they would like some input on what the next 5 years should look like. And that's why we're here today. This is the Willard Envision Center. It will hold the Change Course Career Center, the new Early Learning Center, which is a multidisciplinary center. What that means is that we offer both classical and Montessori preschool. We currently do that in our center right now. It has been highly successful in the 3 to 5-year-old range, and we are just getting ready to push that down into the lower ages. It will have Wyoming's first edible playground, which means everything but the equipment you're climbing on, you can eat. And so it'll be almost like a farm that you're playing in. Our self-sufficiency team and our housing programs will be in the building. This is a new project that kind of fell into our laps that we are doing quite a bit of research on, the Urban Thistle Food Hub, which is a project that will be in the North Casper School. In researching this project to see how it fit within our mission, we found there were 7 public housing authorities that received national awards this year from NARO for their farms, their grocery stores, and using it for a training facility. A lot of those things were combined. One of the farms was over 100 acres, which I'm going to have to decline the 100-acre part because I'm not that good at it. It will be part of the Change Course Career Center, and we have petitioned WCDA for the CDBG COVID money that was originally awarded to a project similar to this in the same building to be reallocated to the city of Casper and to allow this to continue. We are expecting an answer from them for the end of this year. So if you see them or you want to give them a call, now would be the time. So some things that you may not know about the Casper Housing Authority, these are some of the behind the scenes things that are going on. What you'll see a lot in this slide is DHA is the only public housing authority that does these things in our state. We approach our mission with outside the box thinking, and we look at other public housing authorities outside the state and across the country. I would love to stand here and tell you that I'm so brilliant, everything we do, I just came up with it myself, but that's not the way it is. Other public housing authorities are doing these dynamic programs and they're having great success. We never go and visit a housing authority and say, oh my gosh, everything here will fit in Casper, because it won't, but one thing might. And so that's how our organization has grown and how we have been able to serve the people of Casper. It's with that diversity of thought and program there comes a lot of oversight. So if you read that very last line, it says, DHA has 32 audits, reviews, and inspections every single year due to the diversity of our program. They're not extra, they're required by every single program. I think you could probably say we're the most audited agency in the state. So this is a really broad overview, but we'd like you guys to take a look at the handout I gave you, give it some thought. We welcome your input on our next 5-year plan, and that's why we came here tonight. And then we'd like to invite you to come and tour our properties and our programs. But I'm happy to answer any questions if I have any time left.
Any questions for Kim?
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Kim. No questions really. But I just wanted to tell you I appreciate the update. You were very generous in your compliments earlier. But even after, I think I've been on the board like almost 2 years, maybe something like that. And I still struggle to comprehend the extent of y'all's programs and services. You know, you did as good of a job as you could in 20 minutes, but I'm constantly amazed at how much you guys are doing. Really appreciate all the information about, you know, the $50 million in funding from outside of our state to create housing that is necessary here. I appreciate you mentioning the audits, because I'm on like probably 8 boards and I've served on several others in the past. And your guys' financial statements, your P&Ls make me go cross-eyed. Like, it's crazy how many numbers y'all can fit on one page, but it's because you're involved in so many different things. And I don't know how your team keeps track of it, to be honest with you, but I appreciate the update, and thanks for all the good work your team does in the community.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I didn't have any questions either. I just wanted to say that it's really incredible, and we're so lucky to have your leadership and all of the work that is done for our community. And I'm a little jealous that you're the liaison. Just come to the meetings. But it's
Food
just,
is amazing.
it's really wonderful to learn about access to your insights and information. And yeah, just really glad that you're so dedicated to providing something.
Maybe Kyle will invite you to the annual awards banquet.
Pressure's on.
December 8th. Thank you all.
Thanks,
again.
Kim. We appreciate all you do. Thanks, John. Appreciate you. All right, moving along. Fort Wyoming Center Expansion Study Part 2. Napier.
Thank you, Your Honor, counselors. Many of you probably recall the last time we came to visit with you about the study that was conducted in partnership with Visit Casper and OVG. That would have been July of 22, when we presented to you a whole host of ideas that the study had centered in on, as well as costs associated with all those options, and you know, a variety of directions that council could consider going with respect to keeping the Fort Wyoming Center relevant and productive, moving into the next 40 years of its hopeful existence in our community. We thought it would be prudent to come back and visit with you again, now that you've had the opportunity to sort of think about and contemplate that information, and see if you wouldn't be open to a more refined approach to tackling this big concept of what next steps we may need to take with the Fort Wyoming Center. We do have a refined recommendation for you to consider, and some concepts that we really want to get our hands around, if you will, and then hopefully come back and visit with you again as it relates to steps that are more concrete and recommendations that would be hopefully something that you can see us playing a role in here moving forward. Ms. Lopez is here tonight. Our partners are here with her as well. And if it pleases the council, I'd like to turn some time over to her and hear the information and open up for questions that you may have.
Thank you. Hi, Zalima.
Mayor, councilors, good evening. As the city manager mentioned, I've got a couple of people I want to introduce because they will be here to help me answer the many questions I'm sure you will have. So Kirk Goodman is the general manager at the Fort Wyoming Center. He works for Oakview Group, OVG 360. And then Tyler Doherty is, of course, our Visit Casper CEO. So as the city manager indicated, this is our intention to recap the study that was initiated in 2021, in December of 21. It's actually one of my first big projects as your Parks and Rec director. And the results were reported to you in June of 2022. The study was a partnership. It was a split three-way funding between the city of Casper, OVG 360, and Visit Casper. And we hired Strategic Venue Studies to complete the study, and they partnered with JLG Architects to complete the conceptual designs for the study. So of course, 2022 was coming up on our 40th anniversary. Fort Wyoming Center was built in 1982. So as we started approaching that 40th anniversary year, we really started to contemplate the value that that facility brings to our community and back to our state, and start with a show of gratitude to our insightful leadership at the time that it was designed and built, and to our community for the support that they have given the facility over the last 40 years. So some of you may recall some of you may recall that as part of the 40th anniversary celebration, Visit Casper and team worked to create a video. So some of you have seen this video, some of you maybe not. We're newer to the council, and so we just wanted to start with maybe. The new single. We can get that. I'll pull that one really fast.
It looks like it's open the PowerPoint, so I'm gonna ship a different link. I can't pull it up.
Okay.
Sorry.
I can, whose account are you using right now, Carter? Like who's logged into team on that computer you're using?
The lyric is the team's owner.
Can you go send it?
I was gonna say I found the YouTube link, but I don't know who to send it to.
There should be a resource city lyric if you want to send it to that.
Yeah, honestly, if you Google it, let's look at it super quick.
I'll take.
While we are waiting to see if we can pull up the video, I can go ahead and review some of the information that we've received since then. Okay, while we're waiting on the video, I'm gonna go ahead and go over some of the information on the next slide. So in conjunction with the 40th anniversary celebration, we also, or Visit Casper also put out a sentiment survey. And so that survey was deployed in the fall of 2021. And then again at the end or towards the end of our anniversary year in the fall of 2022. And so really the primary, while all of this information is interesting and we can certainly provide the data behind the results for both years, what we really wanted to highlight as part of 4 key takeaways, you know, surrounding this particular discussion is one, this is a great benchmark for future, and we do hope to deploy the exact same survey and see if activity in the 2023 calendar year has moved the needle a little bit. I suspect that it probably has, given some of the great content that we've brought to the facility recently under Kirk's leadership. The second point is that 84.42% of people indicated that they agree that the Ford Wyoming Center is somewhat or very valuable to the community as an amenity. Also, 79.54% of people recognize that it is somewhat or very important to our local economy as a facility in our community. And 55% of those surveyed said that they are very likely or somewhat likely to support a renovation to the Ford Wyoming Center in the future. So we felt like those were some compelling stats sort of framing the conversation today.
Give you the
It's a great video. Definitely helps us remember what a gem we have. And as the video said, we're not past our 15 minutes. I think we have many more 15 minutes of fame coming up. And so we're looking forward to that in the future. Okay. So I did want to just give you a brief data on attendance and economic impact. So of course, 2023 is not done yet. We have a couple of shows still coming, the ballet, the Cirque Holiday show. And so we haven't finalized any of the numbers from 2023 yet. In 2022, we hosted 84 events at the Ford Wyoming Center, 194 total event days with over 205 or almost 205,000 attendees at the events at that facility. In 2023, just with the 6 events listed here, we're nearing $20 million in economic impact. We estimate that the 2022 economic impact to the community was about 25 million. And so we believe that we are on track to have our best year at the Ford Wyoming Center in recent history. Topping that 25 million in economic impact is very likely. So now we'll get into a recap, of the feasibility study. So I'm sure you all reviewed it in the packet again last week. And so I'm going to recap over 100 pages of information in about 5 slides. So it will be quick and you're welcome. Okay.
Yep.
So what we knew at the time that the feasibility started is that we had a 40-year-old facility, that it was owned by the city of Casper, operated by OVG 360, and that it has undergone no major renovations since it was constructed in 1982. What we were trying to learn from the study is what the market potential was to attract more regional events and business to the facility, and to have the experts in that area provide some recommendations on how we should program the existing and or renovated building to keep the building sustainable and relevant for the next 40 years. So the methodology that they followed in order to gather up all the data, they did site inspections, they did a lot of economic and demographic data analysis. They compiled a lot of data on comparable sites. All of that is outlined in your study. They prepared those program recommendations and associated forecasts financially, and then they had JLG architects prepare some pretty impressive conceptual plans of what that could look like, in addition to some cost estimates. All right, so some of the market key findings that the study made. First of all, they used a 3-hour and 5-hour drive time to identify our local, what they call our local market. So the study identified that the market surrounding the Ford Wyoming Center, while relatively small, was pretty stable, and that the demographic data suggested that there's ample ability to support fee-based events at our event center, so it is sustainable. Our Casper market, of course, lacks large convention center space, but the Ford Wyoming Center fills that niche as best as they can in the space that we have. Ford Wyoming Center currently offers the largest playing surface for indoor court and mat competitions, and we contain approximately 2,500 guest rooms and 25 lodging properties, which is pretty good for a community our size. Some key findings on the competition, which of course they compared us to. In terms of our exhibit, meeting, and banquet space, we're one of the smaller event venues in the Northwestern US. On average, there's about 85,000 square feet of usable space in these comparable facilities. The Ford Wyoming Center has about 34,000, just for comparison. Half of the competitive venues offer adjacent or attached lodging with an average room count of about 290 to that attached lodging. Our market size suggests that we would have a lower demand potential than other competitive markets. Of course, we're not as big as other competitive markets, so we do have a lower demand. With our limited air access, that does restrict us a little bit in having attendees that require air travel. While not immediately adjacent to the Ford Wyoming Center, the supported businesses are within a mile, which is pretty convenient for most people. And also important and very relevant to this discussion is that adjacent supporting business would attract more development and activity in that area. We're glad to say is not going to happen. So then here were ultimately the study recommendations in terms of renovation and or construction. And so again, a lot of information kind of compiled very succinctly here for you, but they came back with 4 different phases, essentially, for lack of a better word, that we could consider in terms of construction, renovation, or expansion. And so the first one was main entrance with premium seating. The second one was concourse improvements, which included improving the restrooms, adding additional concession space, city view seating and VIP experiences. So anybody who's familiar with the Rockstar balcony, essentially they said blow out that wall, create city views for our patrons, and create an outdoor patio that complements that. And then number 4 was to add a whole other addition, essentially a freestanding building, a multi-purpose events building that could then be utilized potentially for sports or for convention space. So here are the key performance indicators summarized from the study. Again, there were a ton of graphs and charts for you to look at, but we tried to kind of summarize it here. So while there were 4 options for the different construction that could take place, the 4 options identified here are: we could do nothing, we could renovate the arena only, we could build the expansion only, or we could do both. We could renovate the arena and build the expansion. So that's sort of the summary of the study. Now we fast forward 18 months. This was June of 22. Here we are in almost December of 23. And there's been some significant changes in the landscape up there. When that study was commissioned, we were talking about the Wild Sports Ranch, working on a possible lease of property up there adjacent to the Ford Wyoming Center. And at that time, that facility was estimated to be about 35,000 square feet. Of course, we know now it's a 131,000 square foot facility, and they've broken ground. We're rocking and rolling, right? So significant change in what we originally thought and what was considered in the feasibility study back then. In addition to that, we've done the North Platte Park Master Plan and used the air study to inform some future decision making in terms of land use. Also, the University of Wyoming conducted a study for us that was recently provided to council. And of course, we just applied for a pretty significant grant to build out some infrastructure needed for this development. So those are things that you definitely know about, have been pretty significant in that 18-month period. Some lesser known things that you might not know about is significant improvements we've made to the operation since the time the study was completed. So in July of 2022, we finalized and secured CNFR in Casper until 2027. We renewed our management agreement in July of last year too with OVG 360, and that renewal came with a $350,000 capital investment by OVG into the facility, which we've used for a number of different projects, included some of the ones that are listed here. We purchased a new sport court for volleyball. We converted to Ticketmaster in August of 22. And while I know initially that was not popular necessarily, we do feel like we're yielding some very positive results because of the mass reach that Ticketmaster has. And so we've seen increased ticket sales, and we think that we can contribute some of that to using the Ticketmaster platform. In January of 2023, of course, Kirk Goodman joined our team at the Ford Wyoming Center as the new general manager. And throughout 2023, he has been able to expand the content. We have more shows, we have more diversity, we're getting better dates, and our ticket sales are soaring. And so kudos to Kirk and what him and his team have been able to accomplish there. In April 2023, it was the first time, actually during Journey, that we offered premier parking, which was the first time a pay for parking option was ever utilized, and it has grown in popularity since that time. In May of 2023, we also upgraded the sound system. So the original cluster failed actually during CNFR, not opportune timing, but we have since replaced that, and hopefully you recognize that the sound quality is pretty extraordinary now. July of 2023, we had the facility equipped with access control. That project is finishing up right now. And so that improves the security for all the people that work in the building and attend events in the building. In September of 2023, Kirk implemented Fan Food, which is an app-based or a web-based app that you can utilize on your phone to order food to your seat if you're in VIP or Club 13 seating. In October of 2023, they received a ton of new and improved food and beverage equipment. And so that just upgrades their game when it comes to banquet and events. In November of 2023, we finalized the South Walkway replacement project, which was a big need. And of course, you may remember that that project came in well under budget. And so we have some additional funding that we're throwing at other new and exciting things. In November of 2023, we also started the locker room renovation. That was also a joint partnership with Visit Casper and OVG 360. They're funding the project in its entirety. This is really intended to make us more attractive for sporting events into the future, all events, but mostly sporting events. In December, we will be opening Wi-Fi project proposals on December 7th to get that project rolling, which you graciously funded with the Access Walkway funds. And then in 2023 and beyond, we're working with our Parks Department to do some site improvements. They've been paving, we've been doing some landscaping upgrades, signage, et cetera. So these are all things that we're working on and are coming. And then I think I mentioned to you when I talked to you about the Wi-Fi project that we do hope to eventually get Verizon and other cell providers on the DAS. And so all of those things are really working to move the needle in our performance at the Ford Wyoming Center. And so while we're doing all these great things, though, we need to do more ultimately. We are in a 40-year-old building, and it's really rare for a 40-year-old event center to not have undergone any renovation, any major renovation. And we need to do that in order to keep up with the industry and what the touring entertainers and the promoters want. We need to keep up with what our guest expectations are. We need to be able to keep that building relevant for the next 40 years. We know that the Wild Sports Ranch is going to create a lot of great synergy for us, and we're very excited about that. But we also recognize that having a brand new facility adjacent to ours is going to highlight some of the deficiencies that a 40-year-old building has, both in its appearance and in the way that it functions. And so we need to improve the building and the grounds so that they are more functional and look a little bit more modern and inviting. And then we all know that parking is now and will continue to probably be a challenge, especially when the Wild Sports Ranch opens and are having their own big events. And as our own shows increase in frequency and size, we're going to need to address the parking issues. We also know that the North Platte Park development is going to spawn a lot of area activity. And so we're going to need building upgrades to support bigger and better content and increasingly large crowds, because we believe that that will come once that whole area develops. And an expansion and renovation, in our opinion, should really complement the adjacent land uses and the development that's going to happen in that area. So our recommended next steps would be to update the study. We need to reflect what happened in the last 18 months that weren't necessarily anticipated fully when the study was first completed in late 2021 into 22. We need to be able to evaluate the impacts of the actual Wild Sports Ranch as it is being built and as they have come up with their pro formas of what they can expect. We need to consider that in what we do at the Ford Wyoming Center. We need to do a deeper dive into the arena renovations. You might have gone through all of the data in the study and found that the feasibility study showed that arena renovations will actually decrease the subsidy at the facility. But while they broke the construction down into 3 phases, they didn't break down what the return on investment would be for each of those individual phases. And so we want to do a deeper dive into that so that we can see, okay, if we make a $9 million investment in the concourse, this will be the result in terms of our subsidy. And then we also want to examine any opportunities that weren't necessarily addressed in the initial study. Again, based on some of the things that are happening up there, what the North Platte Park study recommends in terms of land use that maybe wasn't considered the first time around. Then with that information, we need to determine which improvements you all will support and want to try to move forward with. And then we need to identify some funding sources for those improvements. And so collectively, City of Casper, OEG 360, Visit Casper can put our heads together and find opportunities for funding that could help move us forward into the future. So that is my presentation, and we open it up to questions and comments.
Questions for Zulema?
So in the original study, they were saying that they were recommending a separate building. And are you thinking that that separate building is no longer going to be needed because of the Wild Sports Ranch? Or that's still going to be needed?
Mayor, Counselor, I'm going to take a stab at this and then I'm going to ask anybody else to interject, including the city manager. So really, we don't know. What we do know is that any space that they were recommending as multi-use space that could be used for sports competitions may not be needed. So where they were saying that we could or should utilize that as convention or meeting space, we don't know that that's needed either now. With the development that's going to happen in that area, That niche could be filled in the public sector. We could still benefit from all the economic impact that the study shows comes from having a sizable convention space up there. But does that need to be in the Fort Wyoming Center or adjacent to it? We don't know. And that's where the study will help vet that a little bit more. I would say, I think probably not, but I'm not the expert.
I just have a
Right.
follow-up. So I guess my other follow-up is the outdoor space that they're proposing. I understand VIB experience, but the wind. And with the event center on the hill, I've always kind of just questioned that if that's even a necessary part of that, just due to the fact that I've been to some large event spaces and they haven't had that, but I'm just not sure that our weather is going to allow us to spend much time on something of that nature. Well,
Mayor, Counselor, so I would agree, the wind particularly, but our short season also becomes a factor, right? So then it's, should we make this investment in an outdoor patio space, given the limited use potentially we could have out there? That being said, when we did the walkway improvements, we did expand the new concrete walk all the way around so that we could potentially do that. Even if it's just for special events or short periods of time within the summer when the weather is conducive. And JLG did consider, because we talked significantly about that and the wind. And so it's hard to see in the concepts, but they did have a windscreen up. And they claim that there are design features you can implement to help control that and still make it a nice experience with the views despite the wind. But those are things that could be considered a little bit deeper than they were the first go round.
Jenna?
I love the plan and I love the outdoor space, and there's diehards that'll go out there and smoke. I'm not a smoker, but they stand out there and they smoke and they don't care if the wind's blowing 80 miles an hour. But the VIP, just adding that whole other, that section, that VIP section, I think brings a whole different level of experience. And that is a huge attraction to a lot of it. And when you go to different bigger event centers and things, those are the perks that people look for. And that's what I feel like too, and I mean, there's experts in that area, but it adds that visual appeal, that whole vibe, that's part of what you pay for when you go into an event or for an experience. And I think that, just walking in and having that great new entrance and everything will help get more people excited to do it, because the vibe will change inside there and it'll just make a better experience for everybody who's going to come to that show. And I think too, even from a celebrity actor, event perspective on it, I mean, you are going to have, and they come with a whole list of requirements, and I mean, it's all going to make it more attractive to get more concerts and things, right? So I love the whole, and I'm supporting of it. Just gotta find the money, right?
And if I may invite Kirk down to just expand a little bit, because he's constantly sharing articles with me about expansions and renovations that are happening at other facilities across the United States. And with a lot of them, a primary feature is adding VIP experiences and seating. And so
An escalator, people love that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, councilors. Thanks for having me. The VIP thing is a big thing for me too. I think I started my career selling suites for a baseball team in Portland, Oregon. And I realized the value that brings not only to the venue, but also to the corporations and the businesses that support that from a, employee attraction standpoint, quality of life standpoint. And the Rockstar balcony we have is a great piece, but it was built on the wrong side of the building. We can really only use it for CNFR, monster trucks, maybe one or two other events, because it's behind the stage, it's behind everything. If we can create something in the horseshoe that gives an option that keeps it, I don't think we need 20 suites or anything nuts or crazy, but a few areas that the corporations and the big money in this town can take advantage of, provide a great option for their employees, for their clients, that kind of thing. It raises the value of everything we have. And it raises the status of the building in the city as well.
Wow.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Zalima. Thank you, Kirk. I really appreciated that presentation. There was a lot of really good information in there. I share Jenna's enthusiasm for the design. I think it's really cool. Would love to see that happen at some point. Kirk, I don't think you've been present the couple times I've given him some accolades to the event center, but I really, you know, I think I share in the perspective that the past year or two up there, noticeable difference in like the quality of acts that we're getting. I went to Pentatonics is the most recent one I went to, and that was the biggest event I've ever been up to up there. And, you know, just, I've never seen that many people trying to get in at one time. So yeah, I think the quality is definitely increasing, and I want to keep the momentum going on that. I forget who mentioned it, but cost is obviously like the big thing. And I think whoever put the agenda together did you a favor putting you before our next conversation at the business center. From what I remember of the design, I don't remember if it was doing all the upgrades or just some of them, but you know, it was in excess of $100 million, I think, to do the full thing. And I think we've been kind of primed for our business center discussion to expect that our costs for that project are, you know, 25-30% higher than what we originally budgeted for. And so, I guess I would just ask, I think it's important to update the plan to take into account the North Platte redevelopment and the Live Sports Ranch. I guess I'm asking, what do you expect the cost of that to be? And then I guess it's not a question, but just something I think we all need to be mindful of. Obviously, we'll get a little more context if we talk about the business center, but without grants or something else, I just don't know how we would juggle any significant upgrades up there in addition to some of the other things that were the business center. Fire Station 1 is on the near horizon. City Hall, some of us just took a tour of that this week. So we have a couple large projects. And so I'm just wondering how we would even think to juggle something else up at the Ford Landing Center, at least until we're well beyond all of these other things we're kind of working on. So I guess to start, what do you expect an updated plan for heirs to come in and just kind of update? What do we have a ballpark?
Mayor, Counselor, so, it was actually not heirs that did the study. Heirs did
Design.
the design, yeah. So it was actually strategic venue studies. That original study cost us $44,000, again, split between 3 entities. We suspect that an upgrade would be much less than that, maybe a quarter of that cost. But we don't know that for sure because we were waiting for council support before we start engaging strategic venues to look at an update.
Thank you.
Carter.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I really appreciate the dialogue that's happening here with regard to this, because indeed we are talking about a pretty audacious approach with regard to what potentially could be done. But I also appreciate the direction that Zalim and her team are suggesting, in that we really need to understand what it is that we can focus on that really provides the biggest bang for the buck, beyond some of the large, you know, if you spend $80 million, you're going to get this. I'd like to know what happens if we spend $1 million on the floor and what that'll entail. If we do consider a premium space in the outside and so forth, let's ask some questions with regard to what that really looks like, what that involves. Does it include an amphitheater on the other end? We need to be willing to ask the hard questions and the challenging questions and the paradigm pushing kinds of questions, so that we can get data that shines a light on a path. Because it'll also shine the light on a path we probably shouldn't take as well. Probably. So thank you for being willing to you know, really challenge some of these theories, because we need to take that ball and run further than what we've done so far, because we have had a lot of dynamics change. We may not be successful in our approach to the business council, but we need to anticipate what direction we can go, and good data is a great way to give us the answers to the quiz.
Steve.
Oh, he said me?
Steve, yeah, sorry.
Okay. A couple of things along the lines is that you brought up a very astute point about the Rockstar balcony. Is basically for 90% of the concerts that we have here, it's wasted space because it's behind the stage. Secondly, you mentioned the rodeo. Unless you're in the first 2 rows of the Rockstar balcony, you can't see the bull riding because it's all right up there close. So from those standpoints, I love that idea of moving those types of things. The other thing is you mentioned the outdoor balcony area. If you look at the refinery down at Three Crowns, they just renovated that whole area and expanded their outdoor balcony seating area. So we do have the W word, but by the same token, it appears that people don't seem to mind the W word. And so we've all become accustomed to it. So I wouldn't necessarily start ruling any of these options out. I think they're all great. And I'm glad you spoke before I did, because yes, you're absolutely right. From a business standpoint, which is what this is, we need to look at that return on investment. And that's where we need to be. And along with Councilor Gamro's comments about we have the police station, the business center, we have potentially Fire Station 1. So those really play into it. The other thing I would ask is this is all starting to fall on Casper, but yet we are providing great economic impact to the county. They actually get a bigger percentage of everything than what we do as far as the sales tax revenue. Where are they in this whole mix is what I would ask as well, because I think they should be involved in this as well, because those people, and actually our business people, our restaurants, our hoteliers, those people are the ones that really make the big money out of any of this project and anything coming to Casper. Because we don't wind up actually making for specifically the city budget. We don't make our investments and our donations that we make to these things. Because if you look at, I think the CNFR is a prime example. It had $2 million worth of economic impact, but we didn't get $40,000, $50,000 worth of tax revenue out of it to support our donations to it. And so from the business standpoint, we need to be looking at the community partners in this even, because they are the ones that are making the money out of this. That's from a business standpoint.
Sort of along the same lines, I was gonna ask Tyler and Kirk here, what if they had to choose, what would be your, back talking about the return on investment, what would be your top 3 or top 5 things to get done that would bring, that you've heard from, you know, the parties that you deal with in the event, what do they want that would bring the most extra money? Would it be the VIP? Would it be?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Staff, thank you for having me. So, Councilmember, I think the county committed to half, if you guys committed to the other half for the entire project, if you want to go ahead. So.
Okay.
Just kidding.
All right.
So one thing.
We're down to 61.5 million.
It's part of the reason why we updated the locker room. So in our negotiations with NJCAA, they were very interested in Casper. Luke did a fantastic job of pitching them, but they wanted a better user experience for their athletes. And they said, could you do anything with the locker rooms? So that was partly our motivation to go ahead with that. Once we proved that we could provide the roadmap for that to be done before they came in the spring, they gave their commitment then for 2 years. So really $100,000 investment is going to give us a return of nearly 5 million in economic impact when you extrapolate that out over 2 years. To me, that's looking at the ROI from the business sense and making good decisions. Someone who also went to Pentatonics, and the staff up there does a fantastic job. It's the busiest I've ever seen it, and being here a year as well. It doesn't come without its limitations though, right? I mean, you get bottlenecks at concessions. F&B becomes a concern, and then you limit yourself on what you can gather. And I forget the term that you use, Kurt, but on what I would spend on F&B, typical to if you could open up an entire concourse, if you actually had the ability to host 6,000 people. So from my standpoint, it would be to actually be able to hold 6,000 people and service them appropriately. I do love the concept of looking over the mountain and offering a great user experience for any guest that comes. To me, that is super important. You have a facility that served the community in the 80s, and I think now we need to look at what that community looks like from a service standpoint in 2020, 2030, and 2040. I guess we don't hear back from the comment about the other facility in the convention center. To my knowledge, that was more from an exhibit space, so I am also curious what the Wild Ranch, how that plays in from a breakout center if we use the Ford Wyoming and the floor in the concourse as kind of our primary exhibit space, and how the Wild Ranch could complement that, and what our best return is. So I guess my first two would be to increase the user experience for the concourse, and that staff up there can adequately service anybody who comes, so.
Second, the first thing he said. My two things I look at with anything we're looking at the building is guest experience and additional revenue. Because obviously my job is to try to get the subsidy down as low as we can. So any new revenue streams we can create that will help cut into that number for the city, we definitely want to try to make happen. So the guest experience, those of you who came to Pentatonics or Journey back in April, I love the big crowds. They make me happy, but they scare me to death as well, because it really highlights the insufficiencies the building has. Just like Tyler was mentioning, the bottlenecks, we would love to add more concession stands, but we start to talk about safety procedures, exit pass, bathroom lines, all those kind of things. And when you leave a place like ours with 6,000 people at the same time, the traffic is really bad. So how we can best create an experience that people are going to remember and not dread when they come up just for the sake of coming to a concert or a big one. And then the VIP stuff, like we talked about, is huge because the revenue that it generates could really take us to a whole different level. And we would love to see the business community take advantage of that. So anything I can do to make guest experience better and lower the subsidy by increasing revenue, those are anything I'm mainly interested in.
Lima.
Mayor, councilors, I just wanted to piggyback on some of that in terms of also part of reframing and some of the items that we would like an updated study to explore. We now actually have a facility condition assessment for the Ford Wyoming Center that identifies millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of just maintenance improvements that are needed. So then how does that fit in to the scope? If we're going to have to go in and redo plumbing, does it make sense to expand the bathrooms while we're in there doing the expensive part of the maintenance? So I think those are really important features of an updated study that we would want to get vetted out a little bit further so that we know that we're investing our money as efficiently, as effectively as possible.
Thank you. So Carter, direction wise for us, I mean, we can talk about what we want or what we need, but really we're in the stage now where we just need to look at and say, okay, how do we get to that point?
Yeah.
You know, you kind of said it, I think, best when you were saying, okay, the data, we need to get the data. What direction do you want from the council to give a thumbs up for us to move forward with another study? What do you guys need?
Mr. Mayor, I think that would be it right there. I would ask that you would allow us the opportunity to refine what it is that we've gotten. Given the activity of the last 18 months, allow us to drill down in some of the major curiosities that we have and that you probably have with respect to some of the information gaps that exist in the current study, and simply update the numbers. The numbers are now old, really, and aren't as relevant as they could be. So that's my hope, and that would challenge us as well to, with that data, refine what it is that we would recommend as a proposal. And with that, we would hopefully be able to bring forward some ways in which we could consider funding some of those proposals.
Perfect. Council good with that? Exactly what Carter just said there. Perfect. I'm not going to repeat it. Yes, Jahi, yeah. You're good.
So is that already, like, the budget's already in place then to do that, a study refinement, or is that what you have to go see how much it will cost them and come back to us? Yeah.
I would say that we certainly, you know, if we are surprised and it's another $44,000, number one, I'm going to be very concerned about taking an update to that level. But secondly, you know, we do have some options in terms of considering not only where the city can come up with funding, maybe we can, you know, ask our partners for help as well. I'm not opposed to what Council or Kathy suggested in terms of some of our other government partners also, because they have a stake in determining what really good data we can get from this process. So yeah, we have some homework to do without a doubt. But if you're comfortable with us taking these steps, undoubtedly, we're gonna need to come back and visit with you again.
Awesome. We got direction, move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We really appreciate your work. Thank you so much. Thanks, Zulima.
Just
Yes, Steve.
as a question, did Casper fund that solely out of their 1 cent money when it was built in 82? Or was that some of the consensus funding along with other areas, 1 cent money, or where did all of the original funding for the center come from?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, you bet.
Counselor, that was a 1 cent project.
Totally 1 cent by Casper.
$1982. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. And,
$150,000 a village.
we certainly have used other funding sources to do different things, like the seats. That was a consensus funding project,
Yes,
back when that program was around.
right.
And we've done other things with other sources of funding in smaller scopes,
Sure.
you know, without a doubt. We, in the first time in my memory, have had private funding in the partnership with OBG with some of the other things that were working on that
Absolutely.
you saw on that chart.
With all of the advertising, with all of the, I think that one of the best things that previous council did was go outside and let a private firm manage that facility.
Yeah.
Because they have had the contacts to be able to get the events here and all of those types of things. So to me, that was one of the best things that those previous councils did, was to look at that. Yeah. So keep on.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Zulima. All right, Casper Business Center design. On to another design.
Money.
Can I take a break? I've heard this before.
Yeah.
Is it better?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. It has been a little while since we talked about the progress we are making with respect to the Casper Business Center. Many of you are on the committee and have heard a number of the deliberations that staff has had with respect to this large project. And we are gaining experience with regard to the building itself, in that we are spending a lot of time in there right now, you know, and learning more and more each week. We have also had the opportunity to bring on Mr. Brower, who is one of his chief charges, if you will, was to, you know, get us all in a room and help us refine our approach and take a more strategic direction that we are prepared to discuss tonight, as a matter of fact. And hopefully get some guidance with regard to some ideas and recommendations that we have for you this point. So with that, if I could turn time over to Mr. Brower and the chief, I would appreciate that.
Hey, Tom.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'd first like to thank Chief McPeters and Alex Sveda that are both here, as well as Jeremy Trummel with the police department. Started about 10 weeks ago, and I think it was my second day when Carter met with me and said, we got to figure out how to get this police station built for $20 million. And I didn't know a thing about it. And so I was like, great. And so I went especially to those three people, and they have been an incredible help. And they've done a lot of amazing work to get us where we're at today. And so the goal tonight is to present to you kind of where we're at in the design of the project, where we're at in the budget situation, and what our plan is moving forward, what our schedule is, and then some help that we need from the council to keep things moving forward. Thank you. So this slide's fairly busy, has a whole lot of numbers on there. So I tried to highlight the things kind of in the brighter, lighter color that are really important. In May 17th, 2022, we issued a contract with the PFDG, and the total budget for the project, including their fees, was $29.9 million. And then fast forward to April of 2023, and they completed a schematic design estimate, and they're at $29.8 million. Now, keep in mind at this point that there wasn't a lot of contingencies in there that gave us some concern. But still, we're like, hey, we're still within that neck of the woods. And then fast forward to September of 2023, and our current estimate is $38.7 million. And the big important portion of that white over there is there's no contingencies in there. And I'll talk a little bit about construction estimating and some of the challenges, but not moving forward with a contingency on a remodel project of this size is just foolish. It would be a monumental mistake, and I would be standing up in front of you groveling for months to come, trying to get more money to complete this project. So, in summary, the available project budget, our estimate, most recent estimate is 38.6 million, 38.7 without contingencies. And the city manager made it very clear to me on that second day and on several subsequent meetings that we have $20 million for this. And then there was a moment of weakness, possibly, where I said, hey, we worked really hard. We think we can come up with $25 million for this project. And so again, the group of us we met with the architect, and ultimately, you're not going to take that $39 million project and get it down to $25 million by value engineering. You can't buy that cheap of light fixtures. You can't put in the cheap of doors, that cheap walls. Again, when we're building stuff for a municipality, we're trying to build it like the event center. Once in the last 40 years, and we're still standing tall and ready to go. We don't want to build something that's cheap and not built to last. So this is a very busy slide, but I've highlighted it with white and blue. Because the only way that we're ever going to get to this budget was if we tried to phase the project. Now the challenge is we're phasing a project. So that creates a lot of other unintended consequences, unintended costs, to go back and do those spaces at a later time. How do we manage that? But again, there's just no way to get $39 million worth of groceries into a $25 million grocery bag. It just isn't going to happen. So level one, and I've got floor plans for all of these, and I apologize, they're not. It's challenging to see them up on the screen. We can provide bigger copies, paper copies, whatever for you. But level one is that's that lower level that comes off of David Street. And so it's, kind of a basement kind of space. And so that's fleet, evidence, labs, firearms, a lot of storage for evidence, some lab stuff, stuff that's not highly visible things. Level two, and that's the primary entrance. That's the primary entrance when you come to City Hall, the Casper Business Center today. That's the one you come into. And so that's patrol and offices and interrogations. And ultimately that ties into the Sally Port and the garage, where they could drop people off when they're going to interrogate them in the future. Level three was the judges and the courts for municipal court. And to be honest, that was some of the low hanging fruit. Because it wasn't integral to building a functional police station, and we can keep it at the Hall of Justice right now. And so that was the easiest piece to take and apply to phase two. Level four is IT and fire. And so the plan there is, with the unknowns, fire was kind of added as an afterthought, but with the plan for rebuilding fire station number one, there really was no need to build the space for fire on level four. So we're just going to build IT. Again, it's one of my goals to work closely with IT, make that space as efficient as possible, but also make it so that floor doesn't look like it's half done. When you get off the elevator, you go out of the stairs, that you see, oh, okay, these are the offices, and you don't see that unfinished area that is behind it. Level five has been and continues to be demolition only. And so we demolished that to whatever level we needed to. And again, I think there's some cost savings there. Level six, primary offices, captains, detectives, the chief, victim services. Again, the victim services is a big deal, trying to keep those away from interrogation. That's critical to a police station, a functional police station. And that was all included in phase one. Level seven was an area I thought in the beginning that, we could possibly try and save some on, but there's not that much we can save there. That's lockers, showers, fitness area, and technical training. And a lot of this training is essential for the certification that the police department has. So we can't expect our police department to perform at that level and not provide these spaces for them. So we are planning on trying to phase some of the locker areas. And a lot of these are big wide open spaces, like the fitness area. They've already purchased the workout equipment. So all we got to build is a big wide open space with some ceiling fans. And that's about it. So it's more affordable. Level 8 is dispatch, communications, and emergency operations. And again, there's some big wide open spaces, but also critical information. Keeping in mind that dispatch that the police department covers all the municipal areas around here in the entire county. The areas that we were able to cut out, unfortunately, was police garage in Sallyport. Unfortunately, the police will continue to have to use their storage yard that's down by the tracks and the Center Street underpass. The city engineer just did a great job of doing some gravel work out there and some fencing work to make that more usable and functional. But again, it was a higher dollar item that was easily to cut off, and it didn't cost us a whole lot in the future to add that on. We didn't disrupt a bunch of the operations. And then the parking garage structural. And went and had breakfast. Alex and I both had breakfast with Bob Lower a couple weeks ago to talk to him about that structure. And anybody that knows Bob knows he's a character, but he's also a real frank structural engineer. And I said, hey, how long can this last, Bob? And he's like, well, there's some pretty significant structural issues, but I think we can make it last, but we can't just put it in our rearview mirror and drive away from it, because there are some long-term freeze thaw issues and structural issues with that we need to address. But again, fairly easy to phase into the second phase. Unless anybody has specific questions, I'm going to kind of buzz through these slides fairly quickly and get to some of the meat. So again, this is kind of the basement area where you have a lot of storage, the fleet and the evidence and some labs and firearm storage. This is the main entrance. This is where people that are interacting with police, this is where they're going to kind of come on, their patrol officers and interrogation. Ultimately, the Sallyport will go to the right of this picture, or wait, so it's ultimately to the east, which is the next picture here. So that's the Sallyport and the garage structure that will be pushed into phase 2. And here's the courts renovation area. And again, keep in mind, courts can be expensive. Again, with cabinetry, casework, the offices for the judges, private restrooms for judges, things like that. Those can be fairly expensive spaces. So we believe there's quite a bit of cost savings here. And then this shouldn't all be blacked out, but you can see IT is the southern portion of the building, and fire and administration. So we'll do demo only, and you can see how it kind of build that so it doesn't look like there's under construction coming soon. It's going to be identified as a separate space. And level 5, that's an easy one to show. That's demo only. And level 6 is, offices and victim services. And again, just a whole lot of offices up there and a lot of critical space for the operation of the police department. Level 7, and you can see those big wide open spaces. There's training spaces and fitness areas that aren't that expensive. Our hope is that the lockers are expensive. But again, you think about a police officer that's wearing all their equipment and they go out and have a horrible day interacting with some challenging situations. And before they want to go home and pick up their child, they're like, I'm going to go take a shower and clean up. And so these lockers need to have ventilation in them. They need to have all the equipment that they carry around that's electrified. So they need to have electrical outlets. So we think there's some savings that we can take in phasing the locker rooms. Level 8 is dispatch and communications, which again, it's not real exciting space, some offices and then big spaces for dispatch. But again, the backbone, very critical to the operation of the police department. So talking a little bit about construction cost estimating challenges. It's fascinating to realize, during COVID, construction prices went up 30 to 50%. Today on CNBC, housing prices in the last 4 years went up 35%. So everybody wonders why our property taxes went up, because our houses went up 35% in value. And so it's really volatile. It's challenging times. We know that from Project Safe, down there and some of the challenges you had. The other one that's inherently been a problem that people don't realize, especially outside architects, is semi-skilled and skilled labor in Casper, Wyoming. If you're good semi-skilled or skilled labor, there's a lot of high-paying jobs. In the oil field, you can go make 6 figures a year working for the refinery. You can go to work for the coal mines. You can work for the railroad. Again, semi-skilled and skilled labor in Wyoming, we love it because there's a lot of really well-paying jobs. And believe me, we even have a lot of challenges inside city departments. I'm learning, water treatment plant operators, water system operators, wastewater treatment plant operators. It's challenging to find. And there's higher prices in Wyoming. The joke I shared with somebody the other day that I remember my father used to say, it's when the airport here, you only flew to Denver out of Casper. That when you die and go to heaven and you live in Casper, you got to go to Denver first. And so it's the same way with construction materials. The construction materials, we're not making logs and timber off of Casper Mountain. everything doesn't have to go through Denver, but it's got to go through somewhere else to get here. So there's a lot of freight costs that go with living in Casper, Wyoming. And it's challenging, very challenging, given those volatile market, all the issues that are going on with supply chain, price increases, the challenging labor situation, materials. It's been incredibly difficult over the last 4 years for architects, engineers, and owners to do accurate cost estimating. So kind of the summary of that is, I don't have a real warm, fuzzy, cozy feeling about this $38.8 million. I'm concerned that, it could be 40. I hope it's 37 or 36, but I don't have a real comfortable feeling because of all the challenges of doing that estimating. So we come down to our choices. We have a couple project delivery methods that I want to talk about. And one's design, bid, build, and the other one is construction manager at risk. Design, bid, build is the age-old way that municipalities and governments have done it forever. And that is, you have the architect go complete design for the building. The owner works closely, said, oh, this is where we want the offices, this is where we want the bathrooms. And then you put it up to the architects and you just say, go, you got 30 days to give us a price. And so they frantically work for 30 days to prepare a price for you. And their whole process is, I've got to get my price as low as possible if I want to get the job. They're not incentivized to try and, hey, how do I build the best job? What's the best way I can do this? And the general contractor, they select the subcontractors. And I won't say only, but primarily it's based upon who offers me the lowest price. There's a lot of low price subs that get kicked to the side because I can't trust these guys. I've done a couple projects with them and they didn't do a good job, but for the most part, it's low bid environment. And it can, I won't say it always does, but it can create an adversarial relationship. We have the architect saying, my project, my design is perfect, build it the way I said, and contractor saying, well, you didn't show me this and this doesn't work. And the owners sit in the middle playing the pinball game back and forth. And ultimately, when we run into a change of conditions, just as we've seen on Project State, we bring change orders in front of council and we have to approve change orders. The CMAR process is something I've built four buildings of my own, and I've done it as either my own kind of general or as or hired a CMAR. And also on the two most recent project that I was the owner's rep for, the second phase of the YMCA and the Bar None Community Hall, Town Hall and Community Center, we did those as CMAR projects. And how we selected a CMAR, as we said, we put out an RFP. We said, hey, we want to know what your costs are. What's your profit going to be? How much you're going to charge us for insurance and bonding? Give us an estimate of what your general conditions are, because they don't know until they really dive into it, what the general conditions are going to be. And then we also called references and we interviewed them. And it's frankly what I would do if I was remodeling my bathroom or remodeling my kitchen. I wouldn't just take the lowest bid. I'd go out there and interview all these people and say, well, I really like the work they do. Now tell me how much it's going to cost before I, write the check and tell you to go ahead. And ultimately what you do is you engage the CMAR before you get done with the design. So they review the design. And here's a really, really valuable item. It played out both at the Y and really played out at Bar None, where they do value engineering. They say, wow, did you realize how much these windows cost? If we can change the size of these windows to this, if we can change these light fixtures to this, we can save some money. And the architect and the CMAR are working collaboratively together. And so ultimately the architect completes the drawings and then the CMAR prepares cost estimates along the way. And then ultimately we come to that time when we solicit bids. So just like we do on a conventional bid, we solicit bids. Public advertisement, meet state statutes, meet our ordinances where we advertise, we solicit bids. The really cool part is the owner's sitting there with the CMAR in the room opening the bids. So we're looking at the bids and we're saying, wow, this guy left a bunch of stuff out. And then the CMAR says, yeah, and I worked on with the project down in Douglas. And you know what? They walked off the job after 3 months. And so, you get to sit there and evaluate these bids and say, who's the most lowest priced qualified bidder to do this work? And then again, the CMAR works collaboratively with the city and the architect through the construction. And you ultimately end up with a guaranteed maximum price after that bid date. And at that point, you set aside, you negotiate a contingency. And that's usually on the order of 5 to 7%. And it really is based upon how clear and complete drawings are, what the architect and the contractor believe that, could be issues. And then when there's a change of conditions and all of a sudden we come up and we're like, oh, wow, nobody knew that this plumbing fixture was here. We've got to change this plumbing. They go to their plumbing subcontractor. He says, here's the cost to relocate that. We review it together. We say, great, use your contingency and pay for this new plumbing fixture. So we don't have to, it's a collaborative process that results in using a contingency instead of funneling everything through a change order where the architect's always arguing with the contractor over how much it costs. Because you can kind of tell, you can tell where I'm leaning, but I'm a real advocate for the CMAR process. It's been very successful, and especially on remodel projects, I think it's critical because we're likely to uncover things that we didn't know about. So recommendations and schedule. So what I'm asking for tonight and what we're asking for tonight is to solicit an RFP for a construction manager at risk. And we anticipate that that's going to take, several weeks to issue that out there. What's the cost? And I should have covered this. I wished I would have had a slide about this, but the cost for this is probably $50,000 to $70,000 for their pre-design services. So that's their work during the design and to do their cost estimating, to do their takeoffs, to do the value engineering, to do the bid letting, prepare the guaranteed maximum price. It's around 50 to 70. And again, we'll get a competitive bid for that price as part of the RFP process. The other one we want to do is engage an asbestos testing and abatement consultant. I'm happy to tell you that we had interviews and we interviewed 2 different firms. One's a newer firm to Casper that was out of Utah with 3 people with postgraduate degrees in environmental chemistry and engineering, really understood the project well, were very well educated, and their price was less than half of the other bidder. So we really feel like they're qualified. Now it's about $120,000 in round numbers. Part of what we want to do is also include in there with this contractor some training for city staff. So they're aware of, as they have the asbestos training, that only takes a couple days to get them trained. So when we're doing this asbestos abatement, we're not solely relying on a contractor. We have some trained eyes within the city engineering or building department to look at those things. And then ultimately, once they identify what asbestos is there, they'll prepare a plan for remediating that. And then we have the cost for asbestos abatement. Right now, from the preliminary analysis that was done, everything looks good, not great, but good. We don't have anything with ceiling tiles. We don't believe there's any floor tiles that have asbestos, but we are very concerned about mastic and potentially some insulation. But again, that'll all be ferreted out as part of this study with this firm that will be coming to you very soon with a memo and a recommendation to award that contract. Finally, schedule-wise, they're about 90% done with the drawings right now. They're just trying to work on finalizing those and getting those to a point where it'd be a good time for the CMAR to look at them. And then they'll complete that design probably in the second quarter of 2024. We anticipate that we'll get a GMP and the bidding process will occur in the third quarter of 2024, and then construction start in the fourth quarter. I was happy to hear today when we toured Project Safe that they're scheduled for being done. They believed in a certificate of occupancy was July or August. So that was a better date than I'd heard recently, just through the rumor mill. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that July date, because that'll allow us to get in there and do any asbestos abatement we need in the Casper Business Center. So I know there's a whole lot to digest there. I'd be glad to address any questions that anybody has.
Questions? Comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Tom, for all the information. I was glad to have you on the tour through Project Safe. You obviously bring a wealth of expertise and education to the city, so I really appreciate it and glad you joined us. I'm obviously concerned, and it's probably shared amongst my colleagues and everyone else that works for the city, about the increased costs from the initial expected budget. Is it safe to assume, though, I saw that we unsurprisingly already started getting some flack for the ballooning costs, and I imagine after Stu and other folks do their work tonight, we'll get some more of it tomorrow. Is it safe to assume, though, that say we had decided to build brand new, we would not be immune to the same inflationary ballooning costs? It would be the same or relatively similar new construction versus renovation. Is this just industry wide, or is it specific to this project?
Absolutely industry wide. Absolutely industry wide. I can tell you a conversation we had at the YMCA. March 2020, we're sitting there, we got 60% of the money raised, and we're like, COVID just hit. Like, what do we do? And that board was so strong. And I remember going to Thomas and I said there, we said, there's no time better than now to try and bid this project because everybody needs to be to work. And this is an outside project because it wasn't pure greenfields, but it was, you know, an adding on the building. And so they decided to go ahead with the project. We reflected on it afterwards and the contractor actually put some costs together. The second phase of the YMCA wouldn't be built today had they not started in March 2020. You know, we know on Project Safe and the city didn't have any option. You know, with COVID going on, there was no way they could start construction, especially on a remodel. That wasn't going to happen. But it's absolutely affected everything across the board, from garage doors to steel, timber. There's so many. We've got an HVAC unit up in Barnum it's 18 months out. They ordered it within a month of the notice to proceed, and they said, "Oh, it'll be here in 12 months." Now it's 18 months out. There's still supply chain issues. You know, big argument this morning on CNBC whether inflation was 3.4%. But the caveat on that is construction materials are still 4 to 6%. And it's 4 to 6 because it depends on what it is. If we built a greenfield project for this, we'd be way over $40 million. Is that a fair statement, Chief?
Mayor, if it's okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I stepped down here is thank you for setting up that question very well. I wanted to point out for the skeptical and the cynical constituent and citizens that are watching tonight that are commenting on, you know, oh my gosh, prices are rising pretty rapidly. What was the city thinking? We're still able to, I think our best estimates are that we're still bringing this in for half the cost of new construction. And so, you know, unfortunately, we had bad timing on some historic inflationary costs, but the cost of construction outpaced most everything else in those historic rises in inflation. But this is still by far and away far cheaper than new construction build.
Thank you. Amber.
Question has been addressed.
Steve.
Oh, something that we need to remember as well, when you're talking about the inflation, you remember I asked for one of the last bids we gave for, that was way over what we thought compared to what it had been bid at earlier. And 80% of that cost increase was in material and only 20% of it in labor. So that's where a lot of this is coming out. Also, I have to sympathize with supply chain issues. We ordered some stuff for the oil field back the 1st of October. They said 6 to 8 weeks. That would have been, and it was supposed to have been delivered this Friday. They're now telling us, hopefully we'll have it by Christmas. And so this is what's happening, not only in construction, but across industry in general, is that everybody is still fighting big time supply chain issues and getting raw materials to make products. So that's something that our constituents need to understand, that this isn't just a city issue. This is material issues across the country for building anything.
Lisa.
That 5th floor, I know that it's just being demoed out. Do you have like a future plan, or is that just space so that later on you can build it for some other specific need?
Mayor, council, remember the goal. We're intending to get 50 years out of this building. And so as the community grows and as the police department grows, we're going to have space to begin to fill out those numbers. What we really don't know is the changing technologies rapidly advancing in the world. And so that 5th floor, leaving it vacant, saves us the space and the money that we need today, but it allows us to adapt well into the future. So 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, when the time comes that we need that space and it's needed for specific purposes, we've got something, that clean slate that we can customize the needs of this community with that 5th floor. That is our intended growth that we would need, keep us from having to expand elsewhere into the parking lots or other buildings. That's our planned growth.
Thank you. I I just have a couple, maybe two quick clarifying questions, if that's okay. Just trying to correlate the phases to the cost estimates. And so when you're proposing that phase one, does that then mean that is in that $20 to $25 million cost range? And then therefore phase two is in the $13 to $18 million, or how does the budget fit the phasing?
Mayor, Counselor, absolutely. City manager has told me we have $25 million. So absolutely, phase one, we have to do everything in our power to bring it under $25 million. Now, optimistically, again, I don't have a lot of comfort in that $38 million number, but as the CMAR, should we choose to go that way, we'll prepare a cost estimate for the whole facility. And then we're going to work on what this phasing is. And then, unfortunately, I hope we don't have to cut more out, but we're going to try and figure out, every way we can get this thing, because my edict is $25 million is a hard line. And so we're going to work to get that. And then we will have a very good, accurate cost estimate in 2024 dollars for the remaining phase two. And I think it's important to mention as well that when I first got involved with this project, I thought, oh, there's got to be some value engineering when I first started looking at it. And again, I don't want to call it modest. These things need to be built very durable and to last, but there's no cut marble floors in here. There's no, custom oak hardwood, baseboards, it's, conventional doors, but it also has to be durable. We know from building schools that you don't want to go put in half-inch sheetrock and walls in schools, because then there's going to be holes everywhere. So it's built properly, but this is not a gold-plated facility. The gymnasium, the locker rooms, I think there's a total of 5 showers in there. So again, it's not a huge fitness area. It's built modestly, and in reviewing what we could phase, there wasn't a whole lot of cutting we could do. We figured we could cut some lockers. We figured we had a little bit more evidence storage than we needed. But other than that, again, it's a modest but durable design. So I think our architect, and with the direction of the chief and with Alex, they've done a good job of preparing a design that isn't the Taj Mahal.
Carter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom, if you look at this, do you mind re-emphasizing what the at-risk portion means from a practical sense with this model of delivery?
You bet. The at-risk, and there's a lot of jokes that go around about the at-risk, because is there really risk? Because the risk is more, you can have a guaranteed maximum price at a 30 or 40% design, but then their contingency is higher. So there's a greater risk. I really prefer the model, and we debated about it a lot on both of those two previous projects of when to get the guaranteed maximum price. But I really believe it makes sense, and we're almost done with the drawings, to do it at the end, because then you get a really firm price. The biggest risk is the risk for their general conditions and their management of the project. If they don't manage the project well, they go over, they have liquidated damages. If they don't manage the project well and their costs overrun, they're limited to their price they've given us for general conditions. I'll be honest, and I can't stand up here and say there's a huge amount of risk. And there's, in the AIA documents, there's construction management risk, and about 3 or 4 other different hybrids of that. But there's not a huge amount of risk, but the risk is them managing the project and managing the general conditions and managing their steps.
That they cover when they don't.
Yes.
Right.
Now, the fascinating part is, if you have a plumber that comes in and starts working on the project and he goes broke, that's not typically in the AIA documents, that's not a risk thing. That's, we've said, hey, we hired this plumber, he went broke, and you go out and you try and find another plumber for the most, affordable price. And then out of the contingency, you pay the additional cost for that plumber. So it's not like if you're doing a hard design bid build, there is that risk. The plumber just happened down in Douglas on that project. The HVAC contractor walked away, and so they had to get a new HVAC contractor, and it cost them a lot of money. We still haven't figured it out who else is going to pay for it, I don't think, but it's not my project. I've just watched from afar. So,
any other questions for Tom or the chief or Carter? Jen?
I'll just go ahead and say too, is I like your confidence in that, CM. AR, I'm trying to read it. I like your confidence in there and it's something that you're familiar with. And if your gut, is telling you that this is how you can get the job done for that and meet your budget and the restrictions that you have, I feel like, you know, that's how you're gonna operate and I think it's good and supportive of that, of the CMAR, just because you're confident in it and it's something that you're familiar with. And I like the idea too of the whole being able to have subs and retrofit the windows if, you know, the sizes and stuff, because little small things like that make a huge difference when you're saving, you know, a couple $100 on each window for a standard size instead of a custom size, and you're replacing 200 windows. That's a lot of extra cash. So I like where it covers all of that kind of stuff.
Steve?
Coming from the CBC Building Committee, we were in favor of going with the CMAR approach to doing this because of the lowered risk that the city winds up with on the tail end of it.
Yep.
So just to let you know that when we had our meeting back on the 31st of October, that we are in favor of this approach.
Grace? Yeah, Michael. Yeah, you bet. No, go ahead.
I apologize if you said this, Tom, but, so the complete design by second quarter, so it'd be spring 24, we should have the complete design, is that correct?
Mayor, Councilor, yes, and I suspect it'll be even before that.
Okay, and my second part of that question is then, will we have the contingency cost numbers as well built into that, into the new budget?
Yes, absolutely. There will be a contingency in there, and again, we'll flesh out. Well, you know, at that point, we'll get bids for plumbing, for HVAC, for finished carpentry, for sheetrocking, for metal studs, for electrical, flooring. I think I mentioned electrician. Anyway, you know, all those different subs will come in, and it's pretty fascinating when you get a look at those because you get to see the things that some people include and they don't include. For example, electricians sometimes have the IT wiring in there, sometimes they don't. And so that's where you really, it's challenging in comparing apples to apples going, you know, and that's what we'll rely on people that are IT department that are so well educated, say, hey, have you worked with these guys before?
Yeah.
You know, are they going to be, because we've got ITs on one of the floors of this building.
Yeah.
Pretty important component. So.
Absolutely.
Ricardo, do you just need us to give you a thumbs up on the structure manager at risk and the engage in the asbestos testing abatement? Is that what you want tonight?
As well, Mr. Mayor, to green light, if you will, the remaining portion of the design.
The remaining portion of that. So those three items, right? Okay. Is council okay with moving forward with those three items, the CMAR, the asbestos testing and the remaining of the design? Okay, perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Chief.
See you in a minute.
Yeah. I guess we will. Yeah, you bet.
I'm just looking at the proposed, you know, or I guess Tom's initial thinking about these phases and the impact that might have on the port. I mean, what is then the timeline? Like, is that gonna cause any issues in terms of the court being able to stay where they are, or can they kind of stay until the space is ready?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, thank you for that question. I would say that particularly since we have made some renovations on that floor with regard to providing for their security and efficiency and operation and so on. Our sense is that they are in a good spot until the time that we can somehow accomplish the second phase and bring them over into the CBC.
Good question.
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to key off of that. This phase one that is being proposed for you tonight gets you a fully functional police department. It's our communication center. It's all of the critical activities of the police department. They're encapsulated in phase one. It eliminates any of the more, that are critical needs, but we can survive, so we'll still be using the marathon building. We'll still be doing things like that. But this phase one gets you a fully active, engaged affected police department. And we've done a good job of getting it down to the available funds to accomplish the goal that it was originally intended to do.
Thanks, Chief. Good question. Okay, thank you. All right, Center Street underpass. Forward, Carter.
Before we go on,
Yes.
I wanted to say, give a big shout out and a thanks to the work that Tom and Chief McFeeters have both done in coordinating this and getting this together, because they made an excellent presentation to us as the building committee. And then we asked them to go ahead, and we felt it was time to update all of you on where we stood. And that's what's happening tonight. So those two folks have done a bunch of work on this, and we definitely appreciate that. So I hope the rest of council does. I know the building committee does. So thank you both. And the rest of your staff as well, Captain Tremmel and Alex and all of them. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Jen.
I was just gonna ask as far as something about that conversation too. How much, if we got a city employee on the civil engineer side or somewhere in that vicinity to be asbestos trained, would that save us? How much would it cost to get them trained in that? And how much money would that save us on asbestos if they knew how to remove it or test it?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, the good news is from here on out, we will likely always have something for those folks to do when they are trained. Because we've got a lot of old buildings we gotta
That's what
deal
I'm
with.
thinking.
We're gonna have remodels into our near future. And everything seems to have impact as it relates to asbestos. When you're dealing with buildings, the vintage that we have.
Right.
So I would say the investment, for one, is fairly negligible. And for two, those folks will not lose the,
Skill.
that's right, the
Certification.
value and the virtue of that training in our near future, because we're just gonna be dealing with old buildings from now on, because that's what we've inherited. Would you add anything, Tom?
Mayor, Council, the firm that we selected to do the asbestos abatement, they actually put on training course. So that's kind of why I've given you a looser number, that 120, and we think it's gonna be maybe $1,000 or $2,000. We don't know for sure. It's a 2-day training course, and they're certified through DEQ to provide that. So it's a fairly simple training course. We're like, let's have somebody from engineering, somebody from building, and even it's not so much as replacing what the consultant does, because I'm not sure we want to take on all that liability and responsibility, but it's just having an awareness. Selima goes into an old building and there's a lawnmower stored in there, and she's like, hey, somebody can go over there and look and say, wow, we need to test this. It's potentially hazardous and it's potentially asbestos. And with a very minimal amount of money, we can have people trained. And I can't remember, it was Scott Baxter in the engineering office that came up with that idea during the interview process. So just, it's been an absolute pleasure to work on the inside with everybody at the city, but absolutely with the engineering department and police department, because they're just creative thinking, thorough, thinking all the way through projects. And so I think to me, it was just an absolute home run when we stumbled across that. And again, thanks to Scott and Alex for putting all that together.
No brainer. Get everybody trained. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Carter, do you want to tee us off?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, we're not done talking about projects that are getting more expensive. I wish we were. I really do. The Center Street Underpass project is one that we've talked about in the past, and we've certainly talked about various ways in which we can tackle that. Certainly in the context of working conjunctively with YDOT and the improvements that they're anticipating making, and the contextual changes that provides us opportunity for as well. What you have here is really a question of what kind of scope you want to undertake with this project. This has been one that I've struggled wrapping my head around as well, in that, a person with a roller and a can of paint does not seem like it'd be that dang expensive. The challenge is that we're talking about a very significant painting project. We're talking about traffic control, and we're talking about a significant amount of repairs as well. We're talking about working with the railroad. The complexities for a project of this nature, I wish were a lot less, but the fact is they're just not. And so the question that really behooves us to evaluate is how much of this do we want to kick the can down the road for? We know we've got repairs. We know we have things that are exhibiting weakness right now. And frankly, the answers just aren't that easy. If we could send a guy out there with a roller and a can of paint, we would have done that already. And we wouldn't necessarily be having this conversation. You also know that we've done a number of other repairs and improvements to that facility in the past. And so this has obviously been a multi-phase approach. I'm not sure that we have any more phases that we can tackle here, you know, to get this done and get it done in an appropriate manner. Having set that rather depressing table, it is my pleasure to turn the time over to Tom and Alex to take with that and run with this glorious message. If it pleases the council.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the accolades on the previous project. I think I'm going to be taking some deposits out of my trust account to get through this. It's funny, when I came here, and this was another project that got thrown on my lap right away. I was actually the design engineer on this in 1999. Done. So it was a bit like Groundhog Day for me. Oh, let's welcome to the Center Street underpass. Thankfully, Alex was stewarding the architectural kind of landscape improvements project, which is on the slope paving. That's why we put this picture up, so you can see the slope pavings and stuff like at 45 degrees, and the vertical surfaces are, as the name implies, vertical surfaces. And Alex with Andrew Calling in the engineering office had put together, a bid for this and tried to get a price just for repainting the vertical surfaces. And I believe that was around $230,000. And we had $94,000 for painting the slope paving, and just everybody was just really aghast at the price prior to me coming here. I can tell you it's very challenging. Industrial coating is incredibly challenging. It's hard to find painters for even projects like the Casper Business Center, but industrial coating for water storage tanks and all that stuff. The other one is just the traffic control alone on this project is probably $35,000. You got to shut off traffic in both directions. You got to set the detours, and that's expensive stuff. It's maintained, routinely, hourly. There's people out there watching it, making sure somebody doesn't run through it. So there's big costs. The cost of materials, just the cost of products and paint has gone up. But the other challenge again is just trying to find good contractors. And so when we had this challenging project with Alex's help and Andrew's help, we put together 3 options. And option 1 is kind of let's coat everything out there that we absolutely can coat. All the vertical surfaces, the slope paving surfaces, and that includes, pressure washing, chemical blasting, all this stuff, cleaning it off and putting an industrial coating system on there, which would probably include a primer coat and then 2 finish coats. And that would be all the surfaces. And so our estimate for that was $350,000 to $400,000. The other option number 2, which doesn't say this a whole lot, is on the vertical surfaces when you're down under the underpass, they're not in that bad a shape. They need to be cleaned up, and there's some areas where the railing's been repaired. But the plan for option 2 was just to touch up paint those areas where there's some grout exposed or some repairs, and pressure wash the vertical surfaces that are down in there. Thank you very much, man. The vertical surfaces that are down in there and clean that up, and then recoat all the vertical surfaces and the slope paving surfaces that are outside of the underpass. And the estimate for that is about $250,000 to $300,000. Option number 3 is kind of let's just, an Earl Scheib paint job, where we clean it up and just, quick pressure wash and put some coating on what we can, touch it up and paint just the vertical spaces and not the slope paving. And so I know there's a lot of sticker shock on painting. It's gotten expensive painting is, and again, industrial coating contractors I have a fairly small house and I just paid $6,000 this year to have it repainted, and I bought the paint. So, you know, it's an expensive process. That doesn't compare to $400,000, but again, we have traffic control, industrial paint products. These are epoxy based, you know, two component, paints that they mix together because they need to be durable to stand up to the abuse that it takes. And again, our challenge, in dealing with city manager, our challenge from the beginning is this is a real primary entrance. And we think about the Wild Ranch and the developments and the growth going on, and there's a real desire to improve the aesthetics of this. I can give you one promise that I'm going to do everything I can to keep, and that is whatever package you choose, we're not going to be back asking for more money. We're going to make sure that we bid this with enough, not just contingencies, but also options and alternates that we don't have to come back to you. Because I know this is like Groundhog Day for you guys, even way worse than it was for me, looking at this again. And so we don't want to come back again. So whatever you do decide to go with, we are going to do everything. And Andrew, Colin and Alex and I have had that conversation. We're all on the same page of the playbook that we've got to make sure it happens, and we'll do everything we can.
Got some questions, Tom.
Okay.
Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Tom, again, for the information on this project. You already kind of touched on this. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more, though, if you could, on the need for industrial painting? We get flack sometimes for, you know, this one is, you know, the biggest sticker shock, I guess, for me. It's not as surprising to me that the inside of a water tank is going to be pricier because, you know, just from a sanitation kind of point of view and stuff, you know, I'm sure there's it's a lot more complicated. But this one, you know, like Carter kind of alluded to earlier, I guess I'm just surprised it costs so much. And so we've had folks say, oh, you know, why doesn't the Casper mural project have people just go paint murals or something like that? Could you speak a little bit more to the need for industrial painting? Why, in your opinion, it wouldn't be suitable to just somebody go pick up a dozen cans from Home Depot and just kind of do something pretty with it? You mind elaborating a little bit if you could?
Absolutely, mayor, councilors. Ultimately, and I remember I worked with a guy named Bill Spickelmeyer, and I've known Bill forever, and he's a corrosion expert. His company's Rustnot, and he helped me with the product on here. And so you're always looking for these coatings that what can last a really long time and what's really durable. And when we did it in '99, we waterproofed it and put this 2-part Tunimi coating on there. And I know I bought some Tunimi paint. It's like $500 for 5 gallons. And it's very expensive paint. And it's just the quality of the paint. You know, and I know when I painted my house, I bought the best paint, but it's house paint. If we put house paint on this through one winter, you know, we're not going to have much left. So it's very critical. Painting's my worst favorite thing in the whole world because you know it doesn't last all that long. You hope to get 10, 15, maybe 20 years out of a good paint job, but it's just challenging. So you try and put the best products you can on there so they'll last the longest, and that'll allow us to go in there and clean it in the future and try and keep it maintained and looking as nice as it can be. And with those high quality products, you only have a limited number of people that actually have the equipment, the applicators to spray that stuff on. You know, Andrew and I were just talking about this today. I said, we gotta scour the earth. We got to try and find, I'm going to work with local contractors I know to see if they know somebody, because typically when we bid these projects, we get 1 or 2 bidders. In '99, I believe it was Joe Phipps. You know, and he's a building guy, but you thought, well, I figured I could make some money at it, so I bid it. And so we're gonna turn over every rock we can to try and find every contractor that is interested in bidding this, because it really isn't rocket science. But it's just certain people that are used to using these coatings and dealing with the Kinemics and the Sherwin-Williams industrial coatings, and these people, you know, it's a limited number of people.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. So follow up real quick. So if the folks that paint the murals, if they use the same grade or the same quality paint that they use for the murals, you don't expect it to last more than a year or two if we were to do something similar in this?
Mayor, councilor, I wouldn't necessarily say a year or two, but I absolutely think like in these exposures that we're looking at down in there, I don't think it would last very long. I think it's also important to realize, you know, graffiti removal. The nice part about these epoxies, it's a hard, glossy finish, so it's easier to remove the graffiti if we can jump on top of it. I'm hoping and would believe that they did on the mural project, they put an anti-graffiti sealant on there, but yeah, It's just a much different industrial grade coating that can handle the stresses, the salts, the rocks, the gravel, all the splashing. We all know we've driven through there when it's slushy and icy, the abuse that that structure takes.
Thank you.
Jenna.
Okay, so I have a couple, if that's okay. So can you be our CMAR and subcontracted out locally to different whatever, you know, all here and then outside there? And then we have a lot of probation people that are on where prisons or jails full. Is that not an option to be able to use like people that are already like incarcerated that can go out and help? I mean, just as a way, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you know, put more work back into the city. Is that not an option? And then we can, I was like, we'll just stand out there and direct traffic. That was a sarcastic one, but anyway, is that not, can we, I mean, for man labor and for painting, I mean, that's things that you see in other cities too, like inmates go out and use, you know, paint restrooms and walls and fences and things like this. Is that something that we do not do here?
Mayor, Councillor, did I mention I really hate painting projects?
Okay.
I've had a lot of painting projects where I've hired what I thought was a decent contractor. And I remember one specifically down in Glen Rock 20 years ago. And they painted it the first time. We said, guys, this isn't gonna cut it. And they painted it a second time. And my good friend Dave Andrews, who's a public works director, I said, are we gonna have him try a third? We've got 2 coats of paint on this thing and it still doesn't look very good, but it's a water tank. It's up on the hill, it's behind a fence. We ultimately decided they weren't gonna do any better. And I've had more challenging painters than good painters. So I can't imagine trying to take a group of convicts or people that are in prison and turn them loose with $500 a gallon paint or $500 for 5 gallon paint.
Well,
And then trying to use specialty equipment and the surface prep. And again, it's a testing intensive process. Because you need to test and make sure all the moisture's out of the concrete. You need to test and make sure you've got the tooth on there that will hold the paint, that you have the wet and dry film thicknesses that you specified. So it's a process that requires a lot of inspection.
Right.
And as far as me being the CMAR, I'm not a general contractor. And we're gonna do everything but be our own CMAR.
Yeah.
And that is, again, just try and scour everywhere and try and find anybody that's available. Because I've worked with a lot of good painters. Remember the painter that painted one of the commercial buildings, and he did a great job, and I would trust him to do this, but he just doesn't normally do it. So the idea is pick up the phone and talk to those guys and say, would you consider doing one of these projects? Because I know we have good people in this town.
I know, yeah, and that's why I'm like, I don't see, it is a big price. That's what I'm trying to think of too. I'm sure you've already thought of every way. My other question was, what is the purpose of the slants? I mean, do we need them, or would it be cheaper alternative just to demo it all and just have it all vertical on a wall? Do you know what I mean? Like, cause it's all, what is the purpose? Why is it not flat? Why is it vertical?
Mayor, councilors, it's basically a retaining wall, but it's an angular retaining wall.
Right.
And it's the way it was built originally. And I think, memory serves me correct, I had to be very young, but I think there was some other rock that was in there in the old days. Before it was this concrete, but the concrete is just basically to retain dirt.
Retain it. So that, do you see where I'm kind of going with this?
Oh.
Like, would it be less maintenance just to demo that whole slopey stuff and put a retaining wall there and call it good, fill it back in with gravel?
Mayor, councilor, the cost of building retaining walls, reinforced concrete used to be about $500 a cubic yard. Right now, it's about $1,000 a cubic yard for reinforced concrete. So it's there's no easy answers. I mean, we could tear out all the concrete and just put gravel in there, but again, it's not gonna hold up well to the weather or anything else. We're gonna have a lot of demolition costs as well.
I'll find out.
All right, I'm just thinking further along, the further maintenance of keeping having to repaint. It's ugly.
Steve.
I have 3 things. Number one, what's the pink building sitting there? There's a couple of us over here on this side that don't know what it is.
What's in there?
What's in there?
Mayor, councilors, that's a stormwater pump station.
Okay.
So you're at the low point on the street.
Oh,
all the
yeah.
Water
Nope,
flows in that direction. It gets
I know
collected.
exactly what it is. Yeah. It keeps us from being, it keeps us able to drive through there is what that building is.
Excellent.
Okay. The second thing I was gonna ask, Councilors Gamroth and Jensen have both alluded to, and that was going ahead and potentially coming in and having an art contest, since this is the city entryway to go along with the art in the city. And I understand what you're talking about. And in answer to a couple of your questions as well, is I had this type of stuff put on my garage floor. And basically they come in, they get it to the right profile, for lack of a better term, like if you were sandblasting metal to get the profile you want for the epoxy to adhere to, then they come in and start putting the epoxy down. And that garage floor was done in 16. And right now I can still go in there and you get oil on it, you get the salt and garbage from the city streets on it, everything else. And every spring I can go in there with a hose and give all of the stuff off of the city streets back to the city streets. And so it is a very durable product. And yeah, the oil, the gasoline, the turpentine, it just all doesn't hurt it. And that's what we're looking for. But yes, and that was not a cheap process, but with the chlorides and everything on the concrete, not good business, because the chlorides and stuff will slowly get into it, get to the rebar, the concrete falls off.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I guess based off of what you just said, Steve, questioning what my question is, but I mean, I'm contending with the idea of painting it at all, and it doesn't seem like new structures like this are being painted. And so, I mean, is there a way to remove the paint and just protect the concrete? I mean, what is the standard now? Because it just seems like continuing to have the conversation about painting it is expensive and nobody likes painting. So I'm just curious, but I mean, is it an option to just strip the paint and blast it all and
Mayor, councilors, Alex, do you know how old this structure is? 19.
I think it's the 1930s.
Yeah, 1930s concrete. Part of the challenge is the coating was provide some protection. Ideally, we could go in there and sandblast all this off there, but I really worry about the condition of 1930s concrete and us not having it protected at all. And as Councilor Kathy mentioned, with the salts and the corrosion getting into the rebar, and then when steel corrodes, it expands and the concrete cracks. And we have some real challenges. And so Alex and I spent quite a bit of time down there. I think both of us have been down there numerous times trying to figure out a better mousetrap, so to speak. And I can say we don't really have one. And one of the challenges is you're dealing with the railroad, which means you can't even stand up on top. You literally can't stand on top because the railroad will have their people there making sure. And so everything has to be done from the outside. And it's just a challenging structure. You know, and it's frankly, it's like the McKinley Street underpass. We have some less than desirable structures, but they're just a product of 1930s railroad construction. There's creosote that's leaking down off the ties in there. It's a very challenging structure to try and make it reasonably aesthetic pleasing and protect the structure itself.
Option B. Isn't that what you asked? Was option B? Was what was in the,
It was one. It's one.
well, isn't that the one you recommended? Option one.
they recommend
Option one.
Yeah, oh, I thought it was
Amber.
I was just gonna try to move us in that direction. I think we've beaten this horse dead. So I think we should do option one. It's $100 more than option two and it gets the job done all the way. So I'd rather not hear about this ever again. Just paint it.
Does anybody have anything they want to add that's really significant to the conversation?
I had one question about cost.
So I'm just trying to visually figure out what all we're painting. You've got, I mean, are we talking literally from the street up to the sloping as you're entering and exiting and clear up to the top of the bridge and around the bridge? Or are we only talking the slant and the bridge? Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like, what's specifically, what is all getting painted?
Mayor, councilors, great question. It's a great question. The slope paving, the stuff that's at a 45-degree angle, that'll all be painted. These aren't the latest pictures because there's some decorative concrete work that's been done in there since this time. And then all the vertical spaces. So as you're walking down the sidewalk, we won't paint the sidewalk, obviously, but that vertical retaining wall there, it's next to the sidewalk.
Right.
And then in that whole face we're looking at, that will be painted. And that white hand railing at the top, that will be painted. And those, those columns, kind of the classical looking columns, the four kind of major ones and then the three minor ones in the middle. And then inside, when you're walking in through there, ceiling, both sides, but not the bottom. And then inside there, those vertical surfaces that face the street and the vertical surfaces that are on both sides of the sidewalk. So essentially, everything that's painted now will be repainted.
Okay.
So I got two more counselors and then we'll move forward. Kyle and Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I think I brought this up when we had one of our previous conversations on this topic, but what obligation or responsibility, if any, does the railroad company have, considering the fact that the railroad does not service public transit? It sounds like it inflates the costs of our projects to repair the bridge, and so just curious, what responsibility or obligation does the railroad have?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex.
Mayor, councilors, there's an agreement, I believe that we have recorded that's back, I think, from 1940, somewhere around then, that stipulates the responsibilities of what the city has to maintain with this underpass and the railroad. So the city's responsible for everything under the tracks, and the railroad's responsible for everything above the tracks.
I feel like we drew the short straw on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any potential to renegotiate contracts, or is that set in stone?
With the railroad, no.
I think it'd be difficult at this point.
Mayor, councilors, honestly, I've dealt with the railroad for 30 years and they're more challenging to work with than the federal government by an order of magnitude.
Thank you.
Steve.
He answered it. Or Kyle asked it, I should say. Councilor Gamroth asked, and it's been asked and answered.
So the recommendation is one.
Mayor, councilors, that's correct.
Okay. Is council okay with the city going forward?
Yeah.
That's one.
Can we update the color though? Or we have to repaint
you were
it
done.
pink and yellow? We've got smarter minds, but it's sort of ugly.
Mayor, councilors, I think if we're gonna repaint the whole thing, I think we absolutely have an opportunity to look at
Different colors.
some colors. I will work with Andrew and Alex and I will to, try and take some cooler pictures that are more panoramic, probably in some better light. And then, try and see if we can't. And I know there's gotta be somebody that's more creative with the computer programs to try and colorize this stuff than I am.
Yeah.
That can try and present some options. So, yeah.
I don't need to see the options. I just
gotta be
somebody
more
who,
attractive.
somebody who has a good eye for design, pick
I
a
need
color
to
that
see
looks nice. And
You don't paint all of it.
I don't, yeah.
You should talk to my
Yeah.
wife about that. This
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Alex.
I like a nice mauve.
It's what?
It's the problem.
Yeah.
We can come back and have another hour conversation about the color.
This is why I don't see the colors.
I would go with bright red.
And these two will not.
Carter, looked like
be a
we've
part
got
of that
a
video.
leadership nominations conversation, so
Thank you.
I'll hand that over to you.
No problem, no
Yeah.
problem. Tonight, counselors, this is the first step for your leadership process. Essentially, opening the nominations, if you will, from, among all of you. And if it's okay with the council, I'd like to defer to Fleur to walk us through some of the additional details that you can expect to see from here.
Your Honor, members of council. So for the leadership nominations, I think what we discussed was that council would reach out to the city clerk, Amanda, and submit any nominations you may have, self-nominations, nominations for anyone else on council for the mayor and vice mayor position. And if you could do that by this Friday, she will then draft the ballots and make those, she'll call anyone who's nominated who didn't self-nominate, make sure they accept the nomination on Monday. And then Tuesday, she'll draft the ballots and those will be available for you for your straw poll on Tuesday evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Any questions about the nomination process? Michael?
Well, not about the nomination process, but the actual vote will be at the first public meeting in January.
So we'll do a straw poll.
Yep.
Next week.
Yep.
And then we will do, then they move forward, the two move forward, the actual vote to actually move them into the seats will be the first Tuesday in January.
Just January 2nd, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
January 2nd. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Floor. My recollection is that the votes have all been done, I guess, in secret or, hasn't been in public as far as each of us who we voted for. Could you please remind me, what is the rationale for that? Only because my preference is to be as transparent as possible, and I don't see any issues with those votes being public. So do you mind giving me more context?
Your Honor, if you could clarify, do you mean doing it on paper or how we count it in the back, or that we're gonna do it during executive session?
Yeah, like our votes, I guess our votes on paper, they're not public record, I don't believe. And so what's the reason for that? I guess is my question.
Your Honor, in the past, they have been, as far as the numbers, because we have not done it in executive session except for the last, I think, couple of times. And so that was part of the discussion that we had a few weeks ago and previous to that, where we discussed the option of having it in executive session. The city attorney said because of personnel, you could do that. And I think the reasoning from council was that way we wouldn't have to give those out and everyone doesn't have to know how many votes each person got.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we are doing it differently this upcoming time. Those, I guess I would advocate that we be as transparent as possible about the entire process. The reason so is because I'm a big fan of the council manager form of government. But the people that don't care for it so much, that want more of a say in who becomes mayor, I think it would help satiate and quell some of that criticism if we did our diligence to make the process as transparent as possible in every regard.
Your Honor, so we did pass a resolution just a couple weeks ago that stated that way we were gonna do it, and it said that it would be done in executive session. So that's basically the process that council agreed to continue on.
I should have spoke up sooner. Is that what you're saying?
I think you did. I think we just decided to go a different direction than what you advocated for.
Okay.
I remember you advocating for this on a similar line of thinking when we brought it up. So you did mention it.
And Your Honor, yes.
Yeah.
Your Honor, and I think we discussed it in February and you did as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the record, Sue.
This has been your position, I think, consistently throughout.
I maintain the position I guess I've reiterated several times. Thank you.
Steve.
I thought and here again, I'll go along with whatever we decided, but I thought in the past, we normally did it in a work session. We did it on the paper ballots so that they were secret ballots, so to speak, because I don't know if you voted for Jai or whatever. That's part of our Constitution. And also, it's one person, one vote, which is the knock against the forced ranking, because that takes that away as well. But I always thought that we did it in a work session to where everybody gave their 5-minute spiel. We put the deals on the ballots. Floor and the city attorney went in the back room, counted the votes, came out and said, Joe Blow won.
So could you please
And beyond that, I think all you're doing is trying to create turmoil and amongst the rest of the public. And it's us that has to deal with whoever's the mayor, not the rest of the public, so to speak.
Fleur, could you please remind us again of the resolution? We've been down this road and we voted. and the majority of the council voted to do this. And so I understand people's frustrations, but the majority of council voted for this. And if you, I know you're stating your opinion, but we passed a resolution that said this. And so I just want to make that clear. Could you please clarify that?
Sure. So you're right. Prior to last year, we did do it just in a work session. And then our new city attorney, I think the question came up, could this be done in exec session? And he said, yes, you could. And that was the suggestion that we made. And the resolution then that council passed just recently, a couple weeks ago, was that we do exec session, we use ranked choice, and that it would not be in public or in a work session.
And I believe the majority of council voted in favor of that, to pass it through the resolution.
Correct.
I don't think there's any hiding of anything. And I think that it's legal to be done. And I'm sure there are people that don't like that. But I mean, I don't know why at the 5th hour we're doing this again, I guess.
No, we're not.
So. Okay. So please get your nominations in, whether you do them self or you do your individual nominating of somebody else by Friday.
Yes.
By 5.
Yes, if you could email those to Amanda Ainsworth, she would be happy to draft those ballots.
Great.
Thank you
so much.
Oh, and yes, next week there would be 5 minutes during the pre-meeting for any nominee to be able to say their reasoning for why they would either accept the nomination or why they would like to
In
run.
the pre-meeting, we'll be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, in public.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Public.
Yep, so public can hear it. Perfect. All right, Carter, agenda review.
Yes, sir. Let's see, we've got, another thing I want to just remind you of, council, if you don't mind, next week, not only will we be talking about the, the nominees and, conducting a straw poll and those kinds of things, a couple other items that are coming up that have generated some attention as well will be the, public hearing with respect to, removal of public officials again. And that, of course, will bring some commentary. Another conversation pertaining to the zone changes over at Wyoming and Gannett will be available for conversation and second reading next week. And well, certainly there's other things that you will be covering. It's a fairly busy meeting on the 5th, but those are a couple of highlights. On the 12th, our final work session of the year will commence, and we cannot let the year go by without talking about utility rates. That really is, in a lot of ways, a budget discussion. It's probably our first budget discussion for the fiscal year 25 budget, if you will. Obviously, we'll have plethora of other budget discussions between now and the time we visit in May with the fully proposed budget, but the utility rates are going to be a big part of that. We do have a couple other items, as you can see, for the 12th, that'll be very consequential for staff. We look forward to those directives. And then the 19th will be our final meeting of the year. I like to direct council to the back page as well. Future agenda items is where we take a look forward with respect to some of the items that we have coming up on our horizon. And we'd like to be sure that any items that you have interest in are reflected either in the docket or on this back page. And so that opportunity for council to weigh in is real important for us to get. That's all I have.
Perfect. So anybody have any questions about future agenda items or anything coming up? Steve.
I am guessing that the planning and zoning meeting, never mind, it's gonna be on the 14th. So Any appeals will wind up in January.
If there are.
I'm referring to the Kensington Heights, which I know is coming up. That's. Yeah, I wanted to make sure when that was gonna happen because, that would be a long meeting, I'm sure. Do it.
You'll want dinner? This doesn't, it's not on the agenda, but I was just wanting to know, I have a busy schedule coming up for the first couple of weeks of December. When is the Christmas party that we serve breakfast?
16th.
That is the 14th.
December 14th.
Generally lasts from 6:30 to 9:30.
It's the 14th, yeah. At 6 a.m.
Anything else on future agenda reviews? All right, awesome. We'll start with Michael around the table.
Not much. I attended the senior center board meeting yesterday. Getting their budget ready. Out their year. Not much else to report.
Great. Yeah. Steve.
Yeah, planning and zoning on the 14th. Well, that's next month. Hell, come back here. Don't really have a lot. We will have, we've got some more information and we will be having a water board meeting on the 12th, which we have received now some more documents on the transfer of assets with the Wardwell dissolution and bar none taking over. So that's finally progressing, which that's, yeah. And for those of you as your personal assistant, the water board meeting is on the 12th this month.
Updated my calendar.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that everybody's updated it. And we do not have a CNFR meeting in December. The next CNFR meeting will be in January.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Really good at that.
do what?
You're really good at that.
Well, if I could remember to be on time, I missed my 8 o'clock this morning.
You got there. You got there.
Yeah, I got there, but.
Randy.
I don't actually have anything, but obviously I work where I do. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but today seems like a good meeting for it. So seeing a whole lot of COVID cases again, wash your hands. That's all I'm gonna say. Just wash your hands.
Yeah,
And
good advice.
sanitizer's good again.
Good elementary advice.
We don't want masks.
No.
We really don't. So wash your hands. Cough in your sleep or whatever.
Amber.
Nothing. Didn't have any meetings today. I get to go to our city hall on Thursday. Many of you are already gone, but I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Jai.
Two quick things, I guess. I toured the city hall this morning, so that was fun. Got to pretend I understood what most of what was shared, resonated in my mind, but it was fun to see the structure. And then I will be participating in the homeless initiative tomorrow morning, or tomorrow lunchtime. So, I'll look forward to learning a lot and sharing what I can next time.
Thank you. Jenna.
All right, well, guess what? The parade happened on Saturday. You won't have to hear about it again for a while after I say my many thank yous to the entire community. It is definitely a community parade for the downtown Christmas season. And it takes many, many people in volunteers and organizations to put it on. So I just want to say a huge shout out to the police, the county, every city department, sanitation, all the workers there, the ENF towing, they always help out. Let's see, downtown shops, Davis Street Station is always being good to work with for the coordinating with the Christmas tree lighting. Town Square Media for their in-kind donation of being our announcer again this year. And Dynamic Sound, they gave us the in-kind donation too, and so did Backwards Distillery for the girls afterwards, so that was nice.
Unofficial in-kind donation.
Yeah. just, it says, it was amazing, and nothing bad happened that I heard of. It seems like everything went off without a hitch, and it was cold, but everybody showed up and it was fabulous. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't do it without the support of the community and everybody showing up. The other thing is Hogadon opens this Saturday. They only have one run going, but it's boomerang, so it should still be fun. And then ski school will not open until I think it's the following Saturday. I think it's the 9th or something like that, if that's right. But yeah, that's it. So get your ski boots ready, get up there, get your season pass.
Kyle Gambrel.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the Vice Mayor brought this up a couple weeks ago, but I think this weekend on Saturday is the candlelight Christmas for Fort Casper, between 5:30 and 8:30. So, I don't even know if there's any availability left or anything, but, if it interests you, I'd encourage you to look into attending and, participating in that. I failed last week, I think, to mention my most recent Casper Youth Council meeting. It was essentially just a presentation from the Chief of Police, so appreciate him joining us and answering questions. Some very good questions from representatives of that group. And we'll meet again this weekend. I want to thank Jenna and Tammy and everyone for putting on the community Christmas parade. I also wanted to thank Jim, Andrea, Abby, and the rest of the Childs family at La Casina. It sounds like they fed 800 people for free at their new restaurant over Thanksgiving. The Rescue Mission also had a couple meals where they fed a few hundred people at each, so thank you to them as well. It's just really cool seeing great examples of people, you know, illustrating the holiday spirit. That's what the holidays are all about, is generosity, compassion, giving to others and stuff like that. So a lot of great examples of that over the past week. And as a follow-up to that, as liaison to the DDA board, I also wanted to make sure they got appropriate recognition. The Rodoff brothers, they cut down the community Christmas tree. Black Hills Trucking, they used their crane to move it. Total Oil Field Rental, I think they provided the trailer also to move it. Custom Concepts for some fabrication for the tree stand and some other stuff. Equipment Share, Gallus Greenhouse for decorating, and also the Ballot family for the donation of the tree. If that was all to come out of the DDA's budget, it's probably between 30 and 40 grand. So that's all donated in kind by all of those people. And because of that, we're able to hold that event. We're able to put up the community Christmas tree. It's such an awesome addition that did not exist when, you know, any of us who've lived here for a long time, that didn't exist before David Street Station. And I just think it's a really cool, you know, in addition to City Park and lighting up City Park, it's a great anchor during the holiday season and a great place for folks to, you know, experience that sense of community. So thank you to all of those people that make that possible, and including the DDA team, obviously. It's just a really cool thing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Since Mr. Gamroth here mentioned City Park, the lighting of that is December 1st. So, and council members will be there at 5 p.m. Conwell Healing Park at 4:30.
I think it's a 4:45.
4:45.
Yeah, 4:45 starts at 5. Yep, go ahead.
Cookies and chocolate, 5 to 6.
What park did it? Oh.
At the gazebo.
What are the bears? I went to visit Casper meeting this morning, had a report with the event center. Interesting fact that although that Pentatonics was completely sold out, their liquor sales was significantly lower than the Lindsey Sterling concert. So it was, yeah, it was interesting. But overall, it was a great experience. And visit Casper, we don't have a meeting in December, so meet again in January.
Awesome. The only thing I have is just to mention the Festival of 50,000 Lights, the holiday square over at the Conwell Park. You bet. Conwell Park. Several council members will be there. I'm doing some cookies, handing out cookies and hot cocoa. I'll be emceeing the event and kind of getting things rolling and moving. So I'm looking forward to that. There's gonna be lots going on. I think they're having Touch a Truck will be a part of this. It'll be really kind of a cool opportunity to recognize the hard work that you know, city staff does and working on just celebrating the impending spirit coming up with Christmas. So looking forward to doing that. I think that's all I've got. So we're done. Don't forget to get your nominations in.
Was it, would you?
Yeah, and we're on time.